Chapter 2560. Not far away a woman rushed over. Her sleeves fluttered in the wind, and her long hair was tied up in a simple bun. She looked like a young Taoist nun. The woman did not have any accessories on her hair, neck, earlobes, or even on her body. She looked extremely simple and plain, but her every movement exuded an indescribable charm of the Tao. The woman did not wear any makeup, and she was extremely beautiful. In other words, even if there was a little bit of makeup left on this stunning face, it would destroy this natural beauty and make people feel sorry for it. The woman carried a huge square chessboard on her back. On the square chessboard, the black and white chess pieces landed on it like stars. The woman seemed to carry the starry sky on her back as she entered the divine firmament palace. Her body exuded a powerful aura that made people feel suffocated. Apart from immortal King Qingyang, everyone could clearly feel this pressure. When everyone saw this woman, they were not attracted by her beauty at first glance. Instead, they were shocked by her powerful aura. In the divine firmament palace, there were hundreds of millions of cultivators, but no one dared to have any improper thoughts about this woman. Chess Immortal Junyu. Immortal King Qingyang raised his brows and said in surprise. These 4 words were like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. The crowd instantly exploded, setting off countless waves of commotion. Chess Immortal. So this is the Chess Immortal. I didn't expect Fairy Junyu to also come. The 4 great fairies are gathered together. This is an unprecedented grand scene. The Chess Immortal's aura is too strong, as expected of the strongest of the 4 great fairies. I wonder why the Chess Immortal has appeared at this time. As everyone was discussing, Su Zimel looked at the Chess Immortal Junyu, who had just saved his life, and felt a little emotional. When he saw the black chess piece, he guessed that the Chess Immortal might have come. And when he saw Fairy Junyu, he was even more certain that this woman was the Chess Immortal. No one other than the Chess Immortal could match such a graceful bearing. The 4 great fairies could be said to be peerless in their generation. However, each of their temperaments were completely different. Each had their own merits. The Chess Immortal was probably the only one who could make everyone feel such a strong pressure the moment she appeared. However, Su Zimel was a little confused. Did the chess deity, Junyu, lend a helping hand just now? Or did she rush over on purpose? If it was the former, it could be explained. It was rumored that other than being obsessed with the art of chess, the Chess Immortal was the most combative and would often seek out experts to fight. If it was the latter, then why? Su Zimel thought back carefully and was certain that he had never met the chess deity, Junyu. So it's Fairy Junyu. It's been thousands of years since we last met. The Moonlight Sword Immortal smiled as she cupped her hands and greeted the Chess Immortal Princess. Junyu casually glanced at the Moonlight Sword Immortal and said, "The last time I challenged you to a duel, you hid and refused to meet me. Why do you dare to come out today?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal's face reddened as she cursed in her heart. There was a commotion in the crowd, and a few chuckles could be heard. Yunju pursed her lips and smiled. This fellow Taoist Junyu was still the same, speaking without any scruples, and not leaving any face for others. However, even she didn't know whether Junyu's sudden appearance was a blessing or a curse for them. This was because she wasn't very familiar with the chess deity, Junyu. They didn't have much of a friendship, and had only fought once. Judging from Mo Qing's expression, there was even less of a relationship between her and Junyu. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was embarrassed to be exposed by the princess. She coughed lightly and forced a smile. "I was indeed cultivating in seclusion. When I came out, I heard that Fairy Junyu had already left. I didn't mean to avoid you." "Oh." Junyu's expression was indifferent as she said, "Since you're here today, let me see your Moonlight Sword." The Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression was ugly. If he rejected her in front of everyone, it would be equivalent to admitting that he had avoided her, because he was afraid of the chess deity's challenge. Buzz! The sound of a zither rang out. Mengyao slowly stood up and looked at the chess deity with a smile. "Fellow Taoist Junyu, we still have important matters to attend to today. Once we're done, you have the freedom to challenge whoever you want." The Moonlight Sword Immortal heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Mengyao stood up and saved the day. "Talk to me. Put away your stupid zither. I'm annoyed by it." Junyu looked coldly at Mengyao. Her words were sharp and merciless. Mengyao smile also froze on her face. Zhu Wuing had just been injured by Junyu's chess piece. Now that she saw Junyu being so domineering and aggressive, she was even more resentful. She could not help but sneer. Junyu, today's matter has nothing to do with you. You better not interfere. How do you know it has nothing to do with me? Junyu retorted. Zhu Wuing snorted coldly and said, a foreign race has appeared in the Qingquan Academy. Today, we are going to eliminate this foreign race and remove a hidden danger for the divine firmament immortal region. Could it be that you, chess deity Junyu, are also related to this foreign race? Something bad is going to happen. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's heart sank when she heard Zhu Wuing's words. Chess deity Junyu had a domineering personality and loved to fight. Zhu Wuing's words would definitely arouse Junyu's desire to fight. Perfected immortal Mu Feng and chess deity Junyu were both from the Mountain Sea Immortal sect. He knew the senior sister's personality even better. He hurriedly laughed out loud and tried to smooth things over. Senior sister Junyu, please calm down. Fellow Taoist Shadowless was just impulsive and spoke carelessly. Senior sister, please don't take it seriously and take it to heart. Junyu looked at true immortal Mu Feng and asked, who told you to join forces with them? Junyu's tone was calm, but there was a hint of coldness in it. True immortal Mu Feng felt the pressure suddenly increase. He gulped and laughed dryly. No one. It was my own decision. Senior sister, you might not know, but our sect's Yu Hai was killed by this academy's Su Zimo on the battlefield in Shura. I also want to avenge Yu Hai. Yu Hai died at the hands of a cultivator of the same level. It's his own fault. He can't blame others. Before true immortal Mu Feng could finish, Junyu interrupted him and said coldly, as a true immortal of an immortal sect, you want to personally take revenge on a heaven immortal? And join forces with other true immortals? True immortal Mu Feng was sweating profusely after being scolded by Junyu. He didn't know what to do. Although they were all true immortals, there was a huge difference in status in the Mountain and Sea Celestial sect. True immortal Mu Feng looked embarrassed. Senior sister get lost, Junyu scolded. True immortal Mu Feng trembled and didn't dare to say another word. He lowered his head and returned to the seats of the Mountain and Sea Celestial sect. He only felt that his face was red and hot. The atmosphere in the Divine Firmament main hall was extremely solemn. Haha. Sword Immortal Spring Breeze chuckled and broke the silence. Fellow Taoist Junyu, please calm down. We want to kill the alien race out of kindness. We're not bullying the weak because of our cultivation. Is that so? Junyu glanced at Mengyao and the others and said slowly, I'm here today. Let's see who dares to touch him. Chapter 2561. The moment the chess immortal said that, everyone was shocked. No one had expected that the chess immortal would protect Su Zimo like that after he appeared. He even said such harsh words, completely ignoring Mengyao, the three sword immortals, and the other perfected immortal experts. Mengyao and the others had ugly expressions. What's wrong with Su Zimo? He's just a heaven immortal, who ascended from the lower realm. How could he get the three fairies to protect him? It's not just the three fairies. The conflict between the four fairies today was all because of him. The surrounding cultivators also began to discuss. The eyes of many cultivators were still burning with the flames of gossip, as if they had discovered an incredible secret. TSK, what a strange day. Someone lamented and muttered. The four fairies fell out with each other because of a man from the academy. Such explosive news will probably spread throughout the entire heaven realm in less than 2 or 3 days. Why do you think the chess immortal helped Su Zimo? I reckon that it has nothing to do with Su Zimo. It's because Zhu Wuing's words completely angered Fairy Junyu. That's right. Fairy Junyu has always liked to fight for justice. Zhu Wuing's words gave the chess immortal a reason to attack. Even Su Zimo was confused, let alone the others. He was sure that he did not know Fairy Junyu, let alone have any relationship with her. Could it be that the chess immortal was really like what the surrounding cultivators were saying? She was angered by Zhu Wuing and wanted to use this as an excuse to fight? Yunju stared at Su Zimo with a strange expression. She was smart and would not make wild guesses like the others. The chess immortal could not have acted so aggressively just because she was angered by Zhu Wuying's words. Moreover, what Junyu said just now was obviously to protect Su Zimo. It was not as simple as being aggressive. Yunju knew that she and Mo Qing did not have any relationship with the chess immortal. Junyu's sudden appearance could not have been because of them. There was only one possibility. Junyu must have appeared because of Su Zimo. You're usually so well behaved. How come you know everyone? You've provoked the 4 great fairies. Yunju secretly sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo using her divine sense, her tone carrying a trace of peculiarity. Su Zimo looked confused and innocent. He really did not know where this chess deity, Junyu, had come from and why she would help him. The Moonlight Sword Immortal coughed lightly and said, Fairy Junyu, what Taoist Shadowless said just now was indeed a little inappropriate. I hope you don't mind. If fellow Taoist wants to spar with me, I'll be waiting for you at any time after this matter is over. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was definitely one of the top 10 perfected immortals in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm. She was very famous, but now, she was willing to bow her head and show weakness. She was indeed giving the chess immortal Junyu face. The other true immortals also agreed, unwilling to have a conflict with Junyu. Zhu Wuiying's face was ashen. He didn't say a word. Junyu glanced at the Moonlight Sword Immortal and asked, Did you not understand what I said? Fellow Taoist you. The Moonlight Sword Immortal frowned. Junyu looked around and said slowly, I'll say it again. I'll kill whoever dares to touch him today. Zhu Wuiying could no longer hold himself back. He sneered and said, Junyu, you're too arrogant. Do you think you can defeat all of us perfected immortals by yourself? After all, Zhu Wuiying was also one of the 3 great sword immortals. All of them were reputable figures. Now they were being threatened and reprimanded by Junyu. Who could stand it? Therefore, the Moonlight Sword Immortal and the others did not stop Zhu Wuiying and Junyu from opposing each other. Zhu Wuiying was right. The chess immortal was indeed powerful. But with all of them working together, how could they not be a match for a chess immortal? Zhu Wuiying's face darkened. He sneered and said, I just stabbed him with my sword. What can you do to me? Then I'll kill you first. Junyu's eyes turned cold. As soon as she finished speaking, she took the chessboard behind her and smashed it toward Zhu Wuiying's face. This was a Go immortal. He acted as he pleased and killed as he pleased without any hesitation. This time, Zhu Wuiying was prepared. As an assassin, he did not intend to fight the chess immortal head-on. He was prepared to avoid the chess immortal's attack and join forces with the other perfected immortals to find an opportunity to attack. But when he moved, he realized that Junyu's square chessboard was still above his head. At his level of cultivation, he could escape thousands of miles away with a single thought. But now, no matter what divine power or secret technique he used, he could not escape from Junyu's chessboard. Junyu's seemingly simple attack did not seem to have used any divine power or secret technique. But in reality, her Dao technique was all contained in the star chessboard in her hands. The star chessboard had 19 horizontal and horizontal lines that intersected evenly. There were a total of 361 intersections, forming 324 square grids. Each square-inch grid was like a world of its own, and the entire chessboard formed an even wider starry sky. It was vast and boundless like the vast heavens and the vast earth. The entire chessboard did not have any direction. It was a complete whole. No matter how Zhu Wuiying tried to escape, he could not escape the range of the star chessboard. He was like a chess piece that was firmly sucked in by the star chessboard and could not break free. Su Zimo, who was watching from the side, had a cold glint in his eyes. An opportunity. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The battle between perfected immortals earlier on was earth-shattering and dazzling. His cultivation realm was insufficient, and even if he joined the battle, it would be useless. Zhu Wuiying did not appear, and he could not even find a trace of him. But now, Zhu Wuiying was trapped by the star chessboard and could not escape. It was the perfect opportunity for him to strike. Without even thinking, Su Zimo channeled his spirit consciousness and released a peerless divine power towards Zhu Wuiying, fleeting brilliance. Su Zimo did not care if he was a peerless assassin or one of the 3 sword immortals. Since he wanted to kill him, he would not show mercy. He would take his life while he was sick. Furthermore, Zhu Wuing was also involved in the death of perfected immortal burial back then. Su Zimo's action was extremely laughable in the eyes of others. That was because the peerless divine powers of heaven immortals were of no threat to perfected immortals. Perfected immortal experts could easily destroy them with their quintessential essence. Some perfected immortal experts with powerful physiques and bloodlines could even remain unharmed against the peerless divine powers of heaven immortals with their physiques alone. However, when Zhu Wuing sensed Su Zimo's actions, his expression changed starkly. Back in Green Cloud Mountain Range, he was injured by Su Zimo's peerless divine power and lost a total of 60,000 years of his lifespan, causing him to fall from his peak. At that moment, the star chessboard was already crashing down. Zhu Wuing could not be distracted at all. He could only burst forth with all his blood qi and condense his quintessential essence to block the star chessboard above his head temporarily. Exclamation point. The shadowless sword collided with the star chessboard, and Zhu Wuing's body shuddered as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Right then, fleeting brilliance descended. Zhu Wuing was suppressed by the star chessboard and could not move at all. He could only take on the peerless divine power head-on. His lifespan rapidly depleted. Crack, 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 crack. With his lifespan reduced and his blood qi declining, Zhu Wuing's strength plummeted due to his injuries, and he could not withstand the power of the star chessboard. The star chessboard crashed down and Zhu Wuing's body exploded instantly. His body and spirit were destroyed, and he died on the spot. Chapter 2562. One of the three great sword immortals, Shadowless, had died. The cultivators in the Divine Firmament main hall were shocked and shocked. Even Old Man Soul Capturer's death at the hands of Book Immortal Yunju did not cause such a huge reaction. After all, Old Man Soul Capturer was just an ordinary perfected immortal with some special means. Meanwhile, Shadowless came from the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and was one of the three great sword immortals. He had been famous for many years, and his assassination methods were unpredictable. Unexpectedly, he died on the spot today. Moreover, in everyone's eyes, Shadowless was killed by Chess Immortal Junyu in a single move. He did not even have the strength to resist. In the entire Divine Firmament main hall, only a few people noticed something strange. Junyu, who was among them, felt it even more clearly. On the surface, Shadowless had died at her hands. However, in reality, with the power she had just released, it was very difficult to kill Shadowless in a single move. Both sides were in a stalemate for a while, and in this short period of time, many variables would occur. For example, if Meng Yao, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and the others attacked, Shadowless would have a chance to escape. However, the moment both sides exchanged blows, Su Zimo released his peerless divine power and struck Shadowless. Normally, the peerless divine power of a heaven immortal would not be able to threaten an expert of Shadowless level. However, both sides were in a stalemate. Junyu could clearly sense that Shadowless' lifespan was decreasing rapidly. The power in his body was also rapidly depleting. That was why Shadowless could not hold on and was destroyed by her star chessboard. As for Zhu Wuing, he died without leaving behind a corpse. The bystanders simply did not know what had happened to Zhu Wuing in that instant. Instead of saying that Shadowless died at her hands, it was more accurate to say that Su Zimo made use of her power to kill Shadowless. Junyu glanced sideways and took a deep look at Su Zimo. She was entrusted by someone to protect this academy disciple. However, she did not know much about this scholarly cultivator and had only heard of him. It was only now that Junyu realized that this person was indeed special. To be able to release a peerless divine power that could threaten perfected immortals at the heaven immortal realm meant that this divine power had already touched the threshold of a supreme divine power. At the moment of his death, Zhu Wuing probably didn't expect that he would die in the hands of a heavenly immortal. Perhaps this was his fate. When Shadowless tried to assassinate Su Zimo in the Ash Cloud Mountain, Su Zimo retaliated with fleeting youth. Unfortunately, he failed to kill Shadowless. And now, Shadowless had attacked Su Zimo for the second time. Su Zimo looked for an opportunity to counterattack for the second time. Finally, with the help of the chess deity Junyu, he killed her. The chess immortal is too strong. That's right. Fairy Junyu had just appeared. But she already scolded true immortal Mu Feng and forced him to leave. Now she killed Shadowless with a single strike. Such power. The way I see it, it won't end well for both sides. Fairy Mingyao's side is made up of true immortals, who have been famous for a long time. They have the advantage in numbers, and won't back down easily. A burst of discussion came from the crowd. Fairy Junyu, you're too ruthless. A true immortal of the Dajin Celestial Kingdom shouted with a dark expression. Shadowless had an extremely high status among the true immortals of the Dajin Celestial Kingdom. It was equivalent to the Moonlight Sword Immortal's status in the Qianquan Academy, and Fairy Mingyao's status in the Flying Celestial Sect. Now that Shadowless was dead, the true immortals of the Dajin Celestial Kingdom would definitely not let this matter rest. Spring Breeze Sword Immortal's eyes gradually revealed a sharp glint. He said slowly, Fairy Junyu, since you insist on protecting this foreign race, don't blame us for not showing mercy. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's body shone brightly as she said in a low voice, Chess deity Junyu, since you want to challenge me, I'll fulfill your wish today. Ha! Yunju chuckled, a mocking look in her eyes. He challenged you to a one-on-one battle. Now you want to join forces with someone else. Do you have any shame? That's right. Yun Ting did not mind the commotion and said loudly, Moonlight Sword Immortal, if you still have any shame, then fight the Chess Immortal one-on-one. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's face darkened, and she did not say a word. How would she dare to fight the Chess Immortal one-on-one? If the two of them fought one-on-one, there would be no doubt about the outcome. Moreover, the Chess Immortal was clearly someone who did not have any scruples. If this woman really went crazy, she would even dare to kill him. In many people's hearts, the Chess Immortal was a crazy woman who went around looking for people to fight. Everyone was afraid of her. Meng Yao plucked the strings of her zither, interrupting everyone's thoughts and attracting a lot of attention. Today's matter stems from the identity of the Academy's Su Zimo, Meng Yao said calmly. Those who are not of our race will definitely have ulterior motives. This person sneaked into the Qianquan Academy and even wants to fight for the heaven role. Everyone has the right to kill him. There's naturally no need to fight one-on-one against a foreign race. Meng Yao's words temporarily resolved the Moonlight Sword Immortal's awkwardness. That's right. Perfected Immortal Wufeng also said loudly. Junyu, with your strength alone, you can't protect him. Meng Yao and the others had been plotting for a long time. Today, they had already made a move. Now that things had reached this stage, it was like an arrow on a bow that had to be released. Yunju smiled and said loudly, Wufeng, don't forget that Sister Mo Qing and I are still here. Mo Qing didn't say anything but nodded vigorously. The two of you don't have to do anything. Just protect him well. Junyu glanced sideways and said to Yunju and Mo Qing. Then, Junyu turned her head and glanced at Meng Yao, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and the others. She said, all of you are considered top-notch perfected immortals in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Since all of you are gathered here today, it saves me the trouble of looking for you one by one. Let's fight. Junyu shouted, and threw the star chessboard in Meng Yao's direction. The star chessboard spun in midair. In an instant, everyone felt as if they were in the starry sky, surrounded by billions of stars. It was dazzling. Everyone's figures even fell uncontrollably toward the star chessboard. Swoosh! It was too fast. In the blink of an eye, the star chessboard was already in front of Meng Yao. Meng Yao's expression changed drastically. Although she hadn't collided with the star chessboard yet, the terrifying power contained in the star chessboard made her feel suffocated. She even felt a strong sense of danger. So powerful, Meng Yao didn't have time to think. She didn't dare to collide with the star chessboard head-on. She plucked the zither immortal with her fingers. A strand of zither music sounded. Then, her figure seemed to merge into the strand of zither music and disappeared from the spot. This was a life-saving escape technique that she had cultivated. She wouldn't use it unless she had no other choice. The zither immortal's casual attack had made her feel immense pressure. Mengyao had used a secret escape technique to avoid the star chessboard. But there was still a perfected immortal from the Flying Immortals sect behind her. Mengyao had suddenly disappeared, but the star chessboard was still ferocious. The perfected immortal from the Flying Immortals sect saw the star chessboard flying toward him, but he couldn't react in time. His entire body was smashed into pieces by the star chessboard. Blood spurted out, and his essence spirit was destroyed. He died on the spot. Junyu attacked again and killed a perfected immortal. This exchange instantly stirred up the battlefield. The Moonlight Sword Immortal, Spring Wind Sword Immortal, True Immortal Wufeng, and the other perfected immortal experts all attacked. A great battle broke out. Chapter 2563. Junyu attacked, and she actually wanted to forcefully resist dozens of true immortal realm experts by herself. Even Mo Qing and Yunju couldn't help but exclaim in admiration when they saw this scene. If one wanted to fight for the title of Supreme Perfected Immortal, one had to have extraordinary means and shocking boldness. Junyu is indeed very powerful, but she's still a little inferior to him. Mo Qing suddenly thought of someone. She couldn't help but recall the scenes in hell, and she was a little absent-minded. Immortal King Qingyang leaned on his chair and watched this scene calmly. There was a faint smile on his face, but he still had no intention of interfering. He wanted to see how today's matter would end up. A battle between perfected immortals was much more interesting to him than the Divine Firmament Convention. The central area of the Divine Firmament Hall had completely turned into a battlefield. The battle between perfected immortals was terrifying. Many divine weapons, divine powers, and mystic techniques were rampaging on the battlefield. Every collision was earth-shattering. The aftershock of the collision between perfected immortals could easily kill many heaven immortals. The surrounding cultivators retreated again and again. This time, Mingyao's fingers strummed the zither, and the sound of the zither lingered on. The dozen or so ferocious beasts summoned by Mo Qing's painting book gradually couldn't hold on. Their Dao techniques disappeared, and they all dissipated. With the Moonlight Sword Immortal, Spring Wind Sword Immortal, and Perfected Immortal Wufeng leading the charge, the remaining dozens of perfected immortals unleashed a torrential attack on Junyu. Star-scattered chess pieces. Facing such pressure, Junyu's battle intent became even more violent. She threw the chessboard in her hand into the air and unleashed her unique divine power. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The chessboard slowly rotated, and the 361 black and white chess pieces on it quickly bounced up and shot toward the dozens of perfected immortals around her. Every chess piece on the star chessboard looked not much bigger than a fingernail. But in truth, every single Go piece was refined by a star, fused with Dao, and finally condensed into a Go piece. They looked like chess pieces, but in fact they were stars. Otherwise, Junyu wouldn't have been able to injure Zhu Wuing with the help of a chess piece. The 361 chess pieces exploded out, equivalent to 361 stars, attacking at the same time. The momentum was terrifying and unstoppable. The expressions of the dozens of true immortals changed drastically. Meng Yao showed a grave expression. The light from her Dao fruit spread out continuously. His 10 fingers strummed the zither, and his finger techniques became more and more exquisite. The sound of the zither also became more and more hurried, stirring up a murderous intent that seemed to condense into something substantial. Meng Yao had already pushed her zither skills to the limit, trying her best to help the other cultivators deal with the 36 black and white chess pieces. The sound of the zither was bleak and endless. Ripples appeared in the void and collided with the 36 black and white Go pieces. As a matter of fact, if Meng Yao had not taken action this time, and used her zither to block and resolve the collision of the numerous black and white chess pieces, more than half of the dozens of genuine immortals would have been killed or injured. Even Shadowless could not stop it, let alone other true immortals. Boom, boom, boom. The 361 black and white chess pieces broke through the obstruction of the zither music and collided with the divine weapons, divine abilities, and secret arts of the dozens of true immortals, resulting in a series of deafening noises. Sparks flew in all directions and light bloomed. Puff, puff, puff. Even with the help of the zither immortal, he could not neutralize the full power of the black and white chess pieces. Among the dozens of true immortals, half of them coughed out blood and were severely injured, falling from the sky. There were also a few true immortals who were not strong enough and died on the spot after being struck by a few chess pieces. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. The Zither immortal was so strong that he was able to gain the upper hand despite fighting against many alone. The combined forces of the Zither immortal, Moonlight Sword immortal, Spring Wind Sword immortal, and true immortal Wufeng could not suppress the aura of the Zither immortal. A few black and white chess pieces slammed towards Meng Yao. Clang! Clang! Meng Yao had a calm expression as her fingertips strummed the zither strings a few times. The sound of the zither condensed into divine weapons one after another that collided with the incoming chess pieces. There was a series of crisp sounds as the divine weapons condensed from the zither music dissipated. As for the black and white chess pieces, they were almost exhausted. Meng Yao waved her sleeves and swept the chess pieces away with ease. The Moonlight Sword immortal, Spring Wind Sword immortal, and true immortal Wufeng used their own methods to defend against Jun Yu's supreme divine ability as well. Just this move alone showed the difference between the other true immortals and the 4 true immortals. Jun Yu's attacks did not stop. After the Scattered Stars chessboard was released, she leaped onto the chessboard and sped towards the Moonlight Sword immortal. The Moonlight Sword immortal had just neutralized the attacks of the black and white chess pieces when Jun Yu arrived on the Scattered Stars chessboard. Clang! The Moonlight Sword immortal did not have time to think, as she slashed out with her sword to block the Scattered Stars chessboard. Immediately after, the Moonlight Sword immortal pushed her blood chi to the limit and released her bloodline avatar. At the same time, the Spring Wind Sword immortal, true immortal Wufeng, and even the Zither immortal Meng Yao attacked. They released their bloodline avatars at the same time and charged towards Jun Yu. Boom! Jun Yu didn't hesitate either. Behind her, a vast and mysterious starry sky suddenly appeared. This starry sky seemed to be her chessboard. Jun Yu stepped on the Tianyuan position of the chessboard and seemed to be in an undefeatable position. She could dominate the starry sky and control the power of this starry sky. Boom! The bloodline avatars of both sides collided and devoured each other continuously. It was earth-shattering. Break! The Moonlight Sword immortal and Spring Breeze Sword immortal released their unique sharpness and killing intent. The two of them joined forces and finally broke Jun Yu's starry sky into 2. Of course, their bloodline avatars could not hold on any longer and were on the verge of collapse. The 4 of them attacked again. The Spring Breeze Sword immortal's sword technique was extremely delicate and continuous. His attacks came one after another and completely sealed the space around Jun Yu. The Moonlight Sword immortal's sharpness was even brighter, and her sword technique was even sharper. Their sword techniques, one hard and one soft, one yang and one yin, complemented each other, and their battle strength increased greatly. Perfected immortal Wufeng held a sword in his left hand and an axe in his right. He joined forces with Meng Yao and supported each other, cutting off all of Jun Yu's escape routes. The 4 true immortals joined forces and released shocking battle strength. Even the 2 spectators, Yunju and Mo Qing, felt that something was amiss and frowned slightly. All of a sudden, Jun Yu calmly took a step in a certain direction. This step was incomparably profound, like an antelope hanging its horn untraceable. However, it was just a single step, and she broke free from the 4 true immortals' blockade. 9 Palace's subtle steps. When he saw Jun Yu's movement technique, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he murmured softly. This movement technique was released by a black-robed woman when Wu Dao's true body underwent the 10th tribulation of the true martial realm. Later on, he found out from Lin Luo that this movement technique was called the 9 Palace's subtle steps, and was imparted to her by Fairy Ling Long up till now. Su Zimo knew that the only people who knew this movement technique were Fairy Ling Long and Lin Luo. Even Lin Lei and the human emperor had not learned it. Back then, under a freak combination of factors, he had released it once. However, in reality, he did not master the 9 Palace's subtle steps. It was merely a flash of inspiration, and it would be difficult for him to replicate it in the future. To think that he would see this mysterious movement technique from the chess immortal again today. End of chapter. Chapter 2564. Of course, be it Lin Luo or chess immortal Junyu, their 9 palaces' subtle steps were not as exquisite as the footwork of the black-robed woman that Wu Dao's main body witnessed during his tribulation transcendence. Just as Su Zimo was deep in thought, Junyu broke free from the encirclement of Meng Yao, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and the other 3. Without pausing, she counterattacked. Arriving before Meng Yao, Junyu raised her hand and slapped down towards her face. Heavenly Essence Strike. Junyu shouted softly. The center of the star chessboard was the Heavenly Essence position. That mystic technique was equivalent to turning the entire battlefield into a chessboard. By occupying the Heavenly Essence position, one could mobilize all the power of the chessboard and release the strongest attack. Meng Yao and the others attacked without any openings, but Junyu broke free from them. With that, Meng Yao and the others were instantly disadvantaged. It felt as though they were in a game of chess, where Junyu's shocking move reversed the situation with a single move. The battlefield was a chessboard and every single move was a gamble. Although Meng Yao had the advantage in numbers, they were merely Junyu's pawns in this chessboard. Meng Yao's heart skipped a beat, and she retreated hurriedly. At the same time, she raised her zither and gathered her quintessential essence to block in front of her. Bang! Junyu's palm slapped the bottom of Meng Yao's zither in defeat. Meng Yao shuddered. Even with the zither blocking and neutralizing much of the power of the Heavenly Essence Strike, Meng Yao could not defend against it. Her organs trembled, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Buzz! Not only that, one of the strings on the zither was snapped by Junyu's palm. The zither string snapped so close that Meng Yao could not react at all. The snapped zither string was incomparably sharp and whipped Meng Yao's face, leaving behind a bloody wound. Initially, her peerless face was devastatingly beautiful, but now, there was such a wound that her flesh was torn apart, and she looked somewhat menacing. Many cultivators were shocked when they saw that. Right now, Meng Yao was coughing out blood and her hair was disheveled. Anyone who saw her would not associate her with the 4 fairies. Of course, the wound on her face was only a superficial wound for perfected immortals. With a little rest and recuperation, it would be as good as new without leaving any scars. However, this matter was still a huge blow to Meng Yao. She enjoyed the feeling of being in the limelight the most. She was already used to it. Countless cultivators surrounded her and knelt before her, like stars surrounding the moon. Now her miserable and hideous appearance was seen by millions of cultivators. And this was simply an unprecedented heavy injury to her. It would also have a huge negative impact on her reputation. Junyu, Meng Yao realized something and screamed. Her eyes were filled with resentment. But at this moment, she no longer had the heart to continue fighting. She took the opportunity to withdraw from the battlefield and wanted to heal the wound on her face at the first possible moment. Junyu also did not continue to pursue. As she attacked Dream Pearl, her feet moved, causing the star-scattered chessboard to spin at high speed, smashing towards True Immortal Edgeless. True Immortal Edgeless' pupils contracted, a solemn look on his face. At that instant, it was as if he could sense a vast and mysterious starry sky surging toward him, leaving him nowhere to hide. Kill! True Immortal Edgeless let out a loud roar. He condensed his ki, then used his sword in his left hand and his hatchet in his right, chopping down viciously towards the starry skies in front of him. Boom! The heavy sword and gigantic axe collided with the star-scattered chessboard, causing sparks to fly everywhere. True Immortal Edgeless only felt a sharp pain in his hands. The web between his thumb and forefinger was torn, and the heavy sword and gigantic axe were sent flying from his hands. His arms were so shaken that they lost all feeling. True Immortal Edgeless' expression changed drastically. Without hesitation, he turned and fled. At that moment, the Moonlight Sword and Spring Breeze Sword had already arrived before Junyu. The sword light was cold and sharp. Sword Dao was the most lethal. Junyu did not dare to be careless. With a thought, more than 10 black chess pieces sped over and landed on the Spring Breeze Sword instantly. Those chess pieces seemed to have a strong magical power that attached themselves to the Spring Breeze Sword and could not be thrown off. The Spring Breeze Sword Immortal's sword Dao was superior in terms of its intricate swordsmanship. It was like the wind that could penetrate every opening. But now, with more than 10 black chess pieces on the Spring Breeze sword, the Spring Breeze Sword Immortal suddenly felt that his destiny sword was extremely heavy and could not release any intricate swordsmanship. On the other side, more than 10 white chess pieces were attached to the Moonlight Sword Immortal's sword. The Moonlight Sword's advantage was its speed. The Moonlight Sword Immortal had unleashed the speed of his sword Dao to the extreme, which was why he was able to kill his way to his current fame. However, with more than 10 white chess pieces on the Moonlight Sword, his swordsmanship became extremely slow and lost its greatest threat. Any Heaven Immortal present would probably be able to dodge it, let alone Chess Immortal Junyu. What was even stranger was that there seemed to be a mysterious connection between the black and white chess pieces. Although the two sword immortals were attacking Junyu, their sword Dao trajectories had completely deviated under the influence of the black and white chess pieces. They could not even touch the corner of Junyu's clothes. While Junyu was fighting the 4 perfected immortals, she did not stop attacking the other perfected immortals. Those who were proficient in the Dao of chess could see the big picture extremely well. Once the dozens of perfected immortals attacked her, it was equivalent to falling into her chess game. Everyone was under her control. Poof, poof. A perfected immortal expert from the Flying Immortal sect and the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom were killed by Junyu's black and white chess pieces on the spot. Of the 4 perfected immortals, Mengyao and Wufing had been defeated. The remaining 2 sword immortals, Moonlight and Spring Breeze, could also be severely injured at any time. With the strength of the 2 sword immortals, it was already difficult for them to withstand Junyu's attacks. The other perfected immortals were like clay chickens and pottery dogs in Junyu's chess game. They were killed in a disorderly manner and were utterly defeated. Not long after the 2 sides exchanged blows, 10 perfected immortals, including Wu Ying, had already died in Junyu's hands. The smile on Immortal King Qingyang's face gradually disappeared, and he frowned. He had originally planned to ignore it, wanting to see how much trouble this group of juniors could cause in the end. However, the scene before him had already exceeded his expectations. Chess Immortal Junyu was even more powerful than he had imagined. She was decisive in killing, and did not have the slightest weakness of a woman. She was simply fearless. Immortal King Qingyang even suspected that if he did not stop her, Junyu would even kill Mengyao, Moonlight, and the rest. Just as Immortal King Qingyang was hesitating, his expression suddenly changed. He suddenly reached into the void and grabbed a message talisman. When Immortal King Qingyang saw this message talisman, he narrowed his eyes slightly. After thinking for a while, he stood up and emitted an Immortal King-level divine sense pressure that descended on the divine firmament palace. Whoosh! The pressure of this enormous divine sense descended, and the 2 sides on the battlefield were no longer able to continue fighting. Moonlight Sword Immortal and Spring Breeze Sword Immortal were already covered in sweat, and their faces were pale. If Immortal King Qingyang had been half a step slower, the 2 of them would have turned and fled. Chapter 2565. Alright, let's end today's matter here. Immortal King Qingyang's voice was neither fast nor slow, but it contained an invisible majesty. Everyone present, including Chess Immortal Junyu, did not continue to pester him. At this moment, the wounds on Mingyao's face had already healed. She looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and felt indignant. She could not help but say, "Immortal King Qingyang, this lad's identity is suspicious. Senior, please take action and verify his true identity." "There's no need," Immortal King Qingyang said indifferently. "Just now the Patriarch of the Academy sent a letter. It said very clearly that this lad is not a dragon, and has nothing to do with the dragon world." The Patriarch of the Academy had stepped in. Hearing this, everyone realized that Su Zimo had completely escaped from danger. The slander that Mengyao, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and the others had just slandered him seemed even more laughable now. I knew long ago that Su Zimo definitely has nothing to do with the dragon world. That's right. If he was of a foreign race, wouldn't the Patriarch of the Academy have discovered it long ago? Why would he let him join the sect? for the patriarch of the academy to step in to protect him. It seems like the Qingquan Academy thinks highly of this Su Zimo. Among the cultivators who were discussing,
One day,
many of
Zimo
them
would
were
personally
shouting
kill
loudly
him.
just now.
At that moment,
wanting to tear
immortal
Zimo
King
into
Asher's
pieces.
son said loudly.
But now,
These
such a
people
change will
changed their
happen in the
attitude
divine
so quickly
firmament
that it was
immortal
amazing.
palace.
The
The
Moonlight
heavenless
Sword
ranking
Immortals
battle will be
expression was somewhat
postponed for
ugly.
3 days.
He knew in his heart
No
that
one
he
had any
failed
objections
today,
to this,
and it would be very
Firstly,
difficult for
the
him
divine firmament
to have
hall
another
was already
chance
an
to
attack
attack
Su
and
Zimo
needed
in
to
the
be
future.
rebuilt.
With the
This was
potential
originally
that
a
Su Zimo
battlefield
had revealed
prepared
now,
for the
he
heavenless
would
ranking
definitely
battle.
become a
How
perfected
could it
immortal in
withstand
the
the
future?
killing of dozens
At
of
that
perfected
time,
immortals?
he would be the
The
personal
entire
disciple of the
battlefield had been
patriarch.
reduced to ruins.
Furthermore,
and there was
with Su
almost no
Zimo's
place to
foundation and
stand.
foundation.
Secondly,
He might even
more
threaten
than
his
10
position in
perfected
the
immortal
academy in the
experts had
future.
died in the battle
Right now,
just
he could only rely
Even
on
one
Yin
of the
Ting
3
to
great
kill
sword
Su Zimo
immortals
in the
shadowed
battle
for
for
the
the
top
top
of the heaven roll.
This was
Only
considered
then
a
would he
major
be able
matter.
to resolve the
Both
matter
the
in
great
his
Jin
heart.
immortal kingdom,
The patriarch
and the
of the
flying
academy
immortal
was
sect
truly
needed some
meticulous
time to
and
deal with
omniscient.
it.
Of
He
course,
even knows about the
3
matters
days
of
was
the
not a
divine
time for
firmament
the many
palace.
cultivators
Immortal
who
King
came to
Qingyang
participate
murmured in the
meaningfully.
divine firmament
Junior
immortal
brother
meeting.
Su,
You
in
can
the
rest
divine
assured
firmament
now.
palace,
Mo Qing
there were
heaved a
all
sigh
kinds
of
of
relief and
markets for
said,
many
"The
cultivators
academy
to
has
search
always
for
been
and
fair.
exchange
We
treasures.
will never let you be
It was
wronged or
extraordinarily
slandered.
lively.
Master
Every
has
year,
personally come
there
out
would be
to
some
protect you this
cultivators
time.
who would find
Let's see who
treasures in
still
these
dares to
markets.
say anything."
After saying
Mo
this,
Qing looked
immortal
at the
King
Moonlight
Qingyang
Sword
floated
immortal
away.
with disgust.
The many
The
cultivators
Moonlight
in the
Sword
divine
immortal's
firmament
performance
hall
this time
discussed the
had
battle
thoroughly
between the
disappointed
perfected
her senior
immortals
brother.
excitedly.
Originally,
and gradually
she did not have
dispersed.
any feelings
Some
for
walked
the
around the
Moonlight Sword
divine
immortal,
firmament palace
but at least
and strolled
in her
around.
heart, she
Some
still
returned to
acknowledged
their
him as her
residences to
senior brother.
recuperate
After
and adjust
today,
their states to
she wouldn't
prepare
even
for the
acknowledge
heavenless
the identity
ranking
of
battle
senior
in 3
brother
days.
Yuehua.
Su Zimo remained
tell me
silent.
honestly, what's
Of
your
course,
relationship
he
with
was
my
grateful
sister?
that the patriarch
At that
of the
moment,
academy was willing
Yin
to
Ting's
help.
voice sounded
But
in
he didn't
Su
agree
Zimo's
with
mind.
Mo Qing's
His
words of
tone was
fairness.
unfriendly.
For
We
someone
can be
like the
considered
Moonlight Sword
friends.
Immortal,
Su
who
Zimo
colluded
answered,
with outsiders
"Friends?
to attack her
Who
fellow
are you kidding?
disciples. What
She
kind of
should be
friends can
severely
make my
punished.
sister work so
A light
hard?"
punishment
Yin
would be
Ting
to
snorted
cripple his
and said
cultivation,
sourly, and
even if
expel him
something
from the
happened to
academy.
me.
My
A
sister
heavy
might not
punishment
be
would
so
be
nervous.
to kill him.
He had
But the
long
patriarch
noticed
of
that
the
Yin
academy
Ju
did
treated
not
Su
say
Zimo
anything.
differently.
Of course,
Yin
there
Ju's
might be some
performance today
difficulties and
confirmed
other
his guess
reasons.
even more.
Su Zimo was somewhat
I'm warning you,
dissatisfied,
don't
but
you
he would
dare
not
have
voice
any
it out.
ideas about my sister.
Nor would he use the power
Yin
of the
Ting sent
sect
another
to
voice
suppress transmission
Moonlight Sword
and
Immortal.
said fiercely,
Today's
Su
matter was
Zimo
a
was
matter
little
of life and
helpless.
death between
You've
the two
misunderstood.
sides.
There
There's
was
nothing
no room
between
for
me and
negotiation.
Yin Ju. Only
In his
using the
opinion,
sect rules to
Yin Ju
punish
was
the
willing to
Moonlight
stand
Sword
out
Immortal
and
was
help
letting
him
him
only
off
because
because
he
he
had
had
saved her life in the Avicii hell. This matter involved Wu Dao's true body, so he naturally would not explain it to Yin Ting in detail. Hey! Right then, Yin Ju suddenly sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo with her spirit consciousness and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "How do you know Junyu?" Su Zimo said, "I don't know her. This is the first time I've seen her." Yin Ju naturally did not believe him. She sneered in her heart and pursed her lips. "You don't even know her. Why is she so protective of you?" "This, I'm not too sure either." Su Zimo vaguely guessed a reason in his heart, but he could not confirm it. "Su Zimo, follow me." Right then, Junyu turned around and came in front of Su Zimo. Ah! Su Zimo was stunned for a moment and asked instinctively, "Where are we going?" "To my room," Junyu said. Then she took the lead and left. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment. In order to confirm the guess in his heart, he still decided to follow. Yin Ju gritted her teeth slightly and rolled her eyes at Su Zimo. She thought to herself, "You still say that you don't know Junyu? You're already going to her room." Mo Qing's expression was calm, and she did not say anything. However, she followed behind Su Zimo. "Sister Mo Qing." Yin Ju hurriedly pulled Mo Qing back and said, "Junyu invited Su Zimo. Let's not go over." "How can we do that?" Mo Qing frowned slightly. 3 days. What if those people are unwilling to give up and attack junior brother Su again? It's better to follow. It's safer. That's true. Yin Ju's eyes lit up and she nodded. Let's go and take a look together. Chapter 2566. Su Zimo and Junyu left the Divine Firmament main hall together and headed to the Mountain and Sea Celestial Sect's resting place. As for Painting Fairy Mo Qing and Book Fairy Yanju, they followed behind him. That scene was witnessed by many cultivators, and their jaws dropped to the ground. They did not know the inside story, and naturally had their imaginations run wild. Su Zimo did not know that the gossip about him and the three fairies had spread throughout the Nine Clouds celestial realm in less than 3 days. Moreover, the commotion and impact of this matter far exceeded that of the Divine Firmament Immortal Association. Not long after, Su Zimo and Junyu arrived at a quiet house. Passing through the fake mountains, flowing water, and a courtyard surrounded by greenery, Su Zimo and Junyu entered a room before the door closed. Yanju and Mo Qing followed them all the way to the front of the house. Mo Qing gradually stopped when she saw Su Zimo and Junyu enter the room. She stood in the courtyard and admired the flowers and plants around her. She did not seem to have any intention of entering the room. Fairy Ling Long had spent a lot of time with the human emperor. Yanju so she should know about the existence of Wu Dao's was a little surprised and asked, "Naturally, where are we going?" She could also guess that Araki pointed to the room not far away and whispered, "Many people in the Jade Firmament Celestial Realm. Aren't you curious about what the two of them are doing in there?" That was why Fairy Ling Long had asked the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm's chest deity, "The door is closed. Junyu, they must have something important." However, it's not good for us not know the relationship between Fairy Ling Long and brother Su's safety. We can just stay here. Nor did he know how the two of them met. There's no need to go in. Junyu pondered for a moment and stomped her feet. Immortal looked helplessly at the innocent and I have known each other for a long time. She felt angry and amused. Initially, in this world, went to the Azure Firmament Celestial Realm to challenge Lin's interest. That was how I got to know Immortal King Ling Long later. But Mo Qing did not care. I heard that Immortal King saw that Yanju seemed to have something on her mind. So I stayed in the Azure Firmament and seemed to understand something. To practice chess with her. Sister, are you worried that Junior Brother Su is in danger? For a moment. Mo Qing smiled and said, "Don't worry. Rumor has it that Taoist Junyu's performance just now and is obsessed with chess. She probably won't harm Junior Brother Su. I got to know Lin Lei and Fairy Ling Long because they challenged them and practiced what was on her mind. She could only hesitate and stand outside with Mo Qing. And before I met Immortal King Ling Long, the moment the door closed, I had never been defeated. Su Zimo could clearly feel that the entire room seemed to be shrouded by an invisible force that was no match for Fairy Ling Long in terms of chess skills. It was as if he had entered Junyu's chess had nothing to do with the cultivation of the two sides by her. It was completely based on the understanding of chess. Thank you for your help comprehension. Su Zimo bowed slightly to control the overall situation and thanks. Therefore, take a seat. Fairy Ling Long's victory over Junyu was not considered bullying her. She pointed to a praying mat on the ground with Immortal and invited Su Zimo to take a seat. Have you won more than you have lost? She knelt on the praying mat opposite him. Junyu said, Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before arriving in front of Junyu. Junyu said, the two of them faced each other. In terms of understanding and comprehension between them less than 2 arms. I am about the same as Immortal King Ling Long. Junyu opened her mouth and Immortal King Ling Long, you don't have to thank me for what happened in terms of prediction, but I should apologize to you. Of the situation. Junyu saved his life. Hearing this, yet she still had to apologize to him, and a look of realization flashed across his eyes. He almost jumped up from the praying mat. Fairy Ling Long's Dao techniques carefully looked into very useful in chess matches and made sure that she was not joking. The upper hand in every situation. Then he smiled bitterly and asked, "Immortal King Ling Long is both a teacher and a friend to me. Where did this come from?" Junyu sighed softly. We don't know each other before this. Originally, I wanted to be her disciple. But Immortal King Ling Long was worried that I would be implicated due to the internal and external troubles of the Warring Green Firmament Celestial Realm. So she did not take me in. Su Zimo asked tentatively. However, every time I played chess with Immortal King Ling Long, Su Zimo had already guessed this possibility. 1,000 years ago, the 9 palace subtle steps earlier, suddenly called me over. He was only certain when Junyu admitted it herself if you encounter any danger in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Hearing this, Su Zimo finally understood the cause and effect of this matter. 1,000 years ago, Wu Dao's main body had saved Lin Lei and Lin Luo. Fairy Ling Long was grateful, so she summoned chess deity Junyu over and asked her to do this. It was not that Fairy Ling Long had predicted that he would encounter danger at the Divine Firmament Immortal Convention 1,000 years later. Actually, I should have arrived at the Divine Firmament Immortal Convention earlier, Junyu said. However, before we parted last time, Immortal King Ling Long gave me 9 different Go puzzles and asked me to go back and decipher them. Immortal King Ling Long said that some of her Dao techniques are in these 9 Go puzzles. For 1,000 years, I have been deciphering these 9 exquisite Go puzzles and gained something. Previously, in the Divine Firmament Great Hall, the 9 palace subtle steps that I used to escape the encirclement of Mengyao, and the others was hidden in the 9 exquisite Go puzzles. I see. Su Zimo was enlightened. No wonder, June, you could use the 9 palace subtle steps. It turned out that immortal King Ling Long was using the chess pieces to impart her Tao. From this, it could be seen how much immortal King Ling Long liked and valued Junyu. Junyu said apologetically, I was lost in deciphering the Go puzzles and forgot about the Divine Firmament Immortal Convention. That's why I came late and almost made a big mistake. Fellow Taoist, you don't have to do that. No matter what, I was only able to survive because you arrived in time. Su Zimo thanked her again. Chapter 2567. Let's play a game of Go. Junyu suddenly said. Su Zimo felt stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head and said, I don't know how to play Go, nor have I played it with anyone before. Xiao Chun had only come into contact with Go when he was a student. However, he was not interested in it and did not study it. After he started cultivating, he did not spend any time on it. Do you know the rules? Junyu asked again. I only know a little, Su Zimo answered. He felt somewhat confused, not knowing why Junyu suddenly wanted to play Go with him. Su Zimo did not know that Junyu felt even more confused. Back then, after Fairy Linglong gave her the 9 Go puzzles, she said that if there was a chance, she could show the 9 exquisite Go puzzles to Su Zimo. Fairy Linglong also said that if there was anything she did not understand, the two of them could discuss it. Junyu originally thought that since Fairy Linglong said that, Su Zimo would definitely be proficient in the Go Dao. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo only knew a little about the Go Dao. He had never played it before. That's somewhat strange. Junyu frowned slightly. No matter what, since it was Fairy Linglong's request, she did not think too much about it and said, I'll teach you. Since she wanted to show the exquisite Go puzzles to Su Zimo, she had to at least teach him the rules of Go. It was not difficult to learn the basics of Go. Junyu casually explained a few things, and with Su Zimo's talent, he grasped it in less than 10 minutes. Junyu placed the star chessboard behind her between the two. Then, she waved her sleeves, and white Go stones fell from the Go board. The black and white Go stones each occupied half of the board, forming a Go puzzle. This is the first game of the exquisite Go puzzle. You are the black Go stone. How are you going to solve the game? Junyu originally planned to play a few games with Su Zimo. However, when she saw that he only knew a little about Go, she lost interest. After she explained the rules to Su Zimo, She directly laid out the exquisite Go puzzle for Su Zimo to study and figure it out. Regardless of whether or not Su Zimo could decipher it, she had to complete Fairy Linglong's task. Su Zimo looked at the chessboard in front of him and fell into deep thought. Rather than saying that this was the end game, it would be better to say that this was a checkmate. The black pieces that he was holding were being suppressed everywhere on the chessboard. They were being chased and intercepted by the white pieces. The cycle went on and on. He was already in a dead end with no chance of survival. Su Zimo pinched the black piece between his fingers and stared at the star chessboard for a long time. But he didn't place his piece. Because no matter how he calculated, he couldn't find a way to break it. No matter where the black piece landed, it was a dead end. The art of chess was ever-changing and unpredictable. Every move would lead to countless subsequent changes. This required an extremely high level of mental strength. An hour passed, and he sat there motionlessly. The more he calculated, the more chaotic his mind became. His chest was stuffy, his mind was vexed, and his head was splitting. Su Zimo quickly closed his eyes and gradually calmed his mind, panting slightly. When Junyu saw this scene, she was not surprised at all, and only smiled faintly. The art of chess was easy to learn but difficult to master. The game of chess contained many profound Taoist techniques. Origin gave birth to Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang gave birth to the 4 divisions, and the 4 divisions gave birth to the 8 trigrams. The heavens were round and the earth was round. The 360 heavenly cycles, and everything else could be reflected in this 2 feet square chessboard. The chessboard was the heavens and the universe. It was all-encompassing and could tolerate anything. Su Zimo had just learned how to play chess. How could he decipher such an intricate, exquisite chessboard? The 9 exquisite chess games became more and more complicated as they progressed. She had cultivated the art of chess for many years, and the only person she had lost to was Fairy Linglong. Even with her understanding of the art of chess, she took an entire day to decipher the first exquisite chessboard back then. Right then Su Zimo's breathing calmed down. However, he did not open his eyes. Holding the black piece between 2 fingers, he suddenly placed it on a spot on the star chessboard. Thereafter, Su Zimo opened his eyes and looked at the exquisite chessboard before him. He heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. Opposite him, Junyu could not help but exclaim softly in shock when she saw how Su Zimo placed his piece. That was because that move was the key to decipher the first exquisite chessboard. That move seemed to have killed a portion of his black pieces. However, a large amount of life force was opened up after that move. It was a strange move that sought survival in the midst of death. How is that possible? Junyu frowned slightly, and instinctively thought that Su Zimo had merely stumbled upon it by accident. Junyu did not say anything else, and continued playing with the white piece. However, after Su Zimo committed suicide with his black pieces, the situation changed instead. The heavens were vast and the earth was vast. Fishes could leap and birds could soar freely. He was no longer restrained and killed for a chance of survival. Given Su Zimo's talent, it did not take long for him to kill his way out of the encirclement and form a confrontation with the white pieces. Deciphering the exquisite chessboard perfectly, Junyu knew that there was no point in continuing the game, and retracted her black and white pieces. Junyu looked at Su Zimo in surprise and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, you have great talent and comprehension in the Tao of chess. It's truly rare." Even though that was the case, she was still extremely suspicious of Su Zimo in her heart. She thought that Su Zimo's move earlier on was just a fluke. She would have to spend an entire day to decipher the game. How was that possible for a beginner like Su Zimo to take more than an hour? In reality, under normal circumstances, Su Zimo would not be able to decipher the exquisite chessboard, even if he racked his brains and exhausted his mind. However, the moment he closed his eyes and calmed his mind, a thought flashed through his mind, and a black-robed woman appeared. She wielded a horsetail whisk and used a strange footwork. That black-robed woman was the phantom that Wu Dao's main body saw during his 10th tribulation. At that moment, a strange feeling arose in Su Zimo's heart. It was as though the black-robed woman was placed on a starry chessboard and transformed into a black piece in his hands. She was trapped in a dead end and was being hunted down from all directions. However, the black-robed woman was not flustered and took a shocking step forward, breaking out of the situation instantly. Pursuing that feeling, Su Zimo placed his black piece. The spot where he placed his piece was where the black-robed woman took her first step. Thereafter, Su Zimo opened his eyes and looked over. The situation of the exquisite chessboard had already changed, and the black pieces were fighting for a chance of survival. Su Zimo was excited as he recalled the exquisite chessboard earlier on, and compared it to the footwork of the black-robed woman. Gradually, a hint of enlightenment flashed through his mind as though he had gained something. In reality, the footwork of the black-robed woman was the 9 palaces' subtle steps. However, Su Zimo had only seen the form and process of the black-robed woman executing the footwork. It was almost impossible for him to truly comprehend it. But now, Fairy Ling Long had integrated the 9 palaces' subtle steps into the exquisite chessboard. Although it seemed like she was deciphering the chessboard, she was actually making use of the chessboard to impart Dao techniques. Chapter 2568. Junyu was in disbelief as she waved her sleeves and scattered more than 100 pieces on the star chessboard, setting up a second nimble chess game. All these years, she had been focused entirely on deciphering nimble chess games, and she had long memorized all 9 of them. Su Zimo had just deciphered a nimble chess game and was in high spirits. When he saw Junyu set up a second game, he did not hesitate and immediately observed the game. Although the situation of the black pieces in the second nimble chess game was completely different from the previous game, it was still a deadlock. Su Zimo tried to decipher it himself first. Although he had some ideas after 2 hours, he was still unable to confirm it and did not place his piece. Closing his eyes once more, he imagined himself as the black piece in the nimble chess game and how he should escape from such an encirclement. The figure of the black-robed woman appeared in his mind once more. As he looked at the footwork of the black-robed woman, Su Zimo verified it repeatedly with the nimble chess game. A moment later, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he finally placed his piece. Piak! The black piece landed firmly on a spot on the star chessboard. Junyu raised her brow slightly. That was the key to deciphering the second nimble chess game. Without batting an eyelid, Junyu placed her white piece and played against Su Zimo. The second nimble chess game was much more complicated than the first. He had only taken the first step and was unable to escape the deadlock. During this period of time, there were still many traps and tribulations waiting for Su Zimo. Before long, Su Zimo placed his second piece. This time round, Junyu's heart skipped a beat as she looked deeply at Su Zimo. If the first time was an accident and Su Zimo's second time was a coincidence, the third time was definitely not a fluke. Fellow Taoist Su, you're hiding your strength, right? Junyu asked with a fake smile. At that moment, Su Zimo's mind was completely immersed in the nimble chess game, verifying the footwork of the black-robed woman and comprehending the Dao techniques of the game. As such, he turned a deaf ear to Junyu's words. The two continued to play dozens of moves. Junyu played white and gradually gained the upper hand. However, Junyu knew in her heart that Su Zimo had already broken the second nimble chess game with his 2 exquisite moves. Back then, she had spent an entire 7 days to solve the second nimble chess game. Without another word, Junyu scattered the black and white chess pieces again, setting up the third nimble chess game. Su Zimo took a deep breath and immersed himself in it again. Yinju and Emo Qing stood guard outside the door. In the blink of an eye, a day and a night had passed. Yinju squatted on the stone steps with an ancient book in her hands. She seemed to be concentrating on the book. However, the truth was that she had already flipped open the ancient book and stayed on this page for several hours. There were many books in Yinju's storage bag. She had originally planned to read some books here. After all, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. However, it didn't take long before she couldn't take it anymore. It wasn't that the book wasn't good. It was just that his heart wasn't calm. Although her gaze was fixed on the words of the ancient book, her thoughts had long slipped into the room, and she was letting her imagination run wild. Realizing her state, Yunju sighed and put away the ancient book in her hands, looking not far away. There was a woman standing quietly at the side. She was gentle and elegant, holding a brush in her hands as she drew the flowers, trees, mountains and rivers in the courtyard on a piece of paper. The woman was one with the mountains and rivers in the courtyard. Her existence was like the most beautiful painting in the world. Yunju smiled gently. For the simple-minded Mo Qing, it wouldn't be a problem for her to draw here for 3 years, or even 30 years, let alone 3 days and 3 nights. Yunju stood up and came to Mo Qing's side, waving her hand gently. Sister Yunju, what's wrong? Mo Qing turned around and asked. Yunju pointed in the direction of Junyu's room. The two of them have been in there for a long time without coming out. There's no movement either. Yes. Mo Qing nodded. It's indeed a little strange, Yunju said mysteriously. Do you want to go in and take a look at what the two of them are doing? Isn't it a little abrupt? Mo Qing frowned slightly with a hesitant expression. It's nothing, Yunju said. We're just visiting, not barging in. All right. Mo Qing nodded in agreement. Yunju and Mo Qing arrived in front of Junyu's room. Yunju stepped forward and said loudly, I'm Yunju. I'm here with Mo Qing to visit fellow Taoist Junyu. Please open the door. After a while, there was no response from the room. Yunju pondered and said, There's a restriction in this room that isolates spirit consciousness and sound. I'll try knocking on the door. As she said that, Yunju stepped forward and knocked on the door gently. After a few knocks, a gap appeared on the door. The door was not locked. Yunju pushed open the door gently and saw Su Zimo and Junyu kneeling on futons in the room, with a game of Go between them. The two of them were playing an intense game of Go. Yunju opened her mouth slightly and was dumbfounded. She had imagined countless scenes, but this was the only one she had not imagined. Mo Qing was also surprised when she saw this scene. Come in and close the door. Junyu's voice sounded. Yunju and Mo Qing entered the room and turned to close the door. Su Zimo seemed to be immersed in the game of Go and did not even notice the arrival of Yunju and Mo Qing. The two of you have been playing Go for an entire day and night? Yunju asked in disbelief. Yes. Junyu nodded and looked at Su Zimo with a conflicted expression. In a single day and night, this beginner of Go before her managed to crack 6 exquisite Go games in a row. This was completely beyond her imagination. Back then, she took a day to crack the first exquisite Go game. She took 7 days to crack the second game. She took an entire month to crack the third game. She took an entire 100 years to crack the 6th game. During that 100 years, she did not cultivate at all, and spent all her time and effort on cracking the exquisite Go games. That torment was still fresh in her memories. She spent more than 100 years to crack the first 6 exquisite Go games. However, this disciple of the academy before her only took a single day and night. Right now, Su Zimo was already attempting to crack the 7th exquisite Go game. She took an even longer time to crack the 7th exquisite Go game. Close to 500 years. Junyu did not dare to guess how long Su Zimo would take to crack the 7th exquisite Go game. However, at this moment, she finally understood why Fairy Ling Long wanted the two of them to communicate. Indeed, this beginner of Go before her was qualified to communicate with her. In reality, the reason why Fairy Ling Long could make that judgment was because Lin Luo told her that Su Zimo seemed to have unintentionally released the 9 palace subtle steps once. Fairy Ling Long was greatly surprised by this. She guessed that Su Zimo might have come into contact with the 9 palace subtle steps before, but did not truly master it. That was the reason why Fairy Ling Long hid the 9 palace subtle steps in the 9 exquisite Go games. She wanted to impart the Tao through Go games to repay Araki Takashi for saving Lin Lei and his sister. Chapter 2569. As expected of a chess immortal, Yinju chuckled. Junyu was obsessed with the Tao of chess, and actually dragged Su Zimo to play chess for an entire day and night in her room. That was something that ordinary people would not be able to do. Mo Qing looked at the game on the star chessboard and asked curiously, "Junior brother Su is also proficient in the Tao of chess, and can play against you?" Junyu had a conflicted expression. Fellow Taoist Su's talent in the Tao of chess is truly, it's a long story. In terms of chess skills, Su Zimo was far inferior to her in terms of layouts, formations, opportunities mid-game and combat. After all, Su Zimo had only just grasped the rules of chess, and could only be considered as a beginner. However, in the game, Su Zimo's talent, comprehension, mentality, execution, spirit and will were on par with hers. In fact, he might even be superior to her in certain aspects. Furthermore, Su Zimo would often come up with astounding ideas to find a way to survive in the midst of death and break through the chessboard. Yinju was surprised as well. She had dabbled in the Tao of chess and was not weak. However, she lost to Junyu in multiple games back then. How could Su Zimo receive such a high evaluation from Junyu in the Tao of chess? This game of chess looks a little. Junyu merely swept her gaze across the star chessboard and frowned when she caught sight of the chess pieces on it. She wanted to say something but stopped. Given her chess skills, there was no way she could escape alive if she had a black piece. Or rather, this game of chess was a dead end. Junyu did not avoid Yinju and Mo Qing. "I've prepared 9 endgames and fellow Taoist, Su has already solved 6 of them. Right now, the both of you are looking at the 7th. The nimble chess game was extremely profound and unpredictable. Even if Junyu and Mo Qing were to watch from the side, they would not be able to tell anything. Mo Qing was not interested in chess, and merely found a cushion not far away from Su Zimo to sit cross-legged. Yinju stood at the side and stared at the endgame, trying to find a way to solve it. However, half a day had passed, and Su Zimo still had not placed a piece. Yinju was clueless as well. Not only that, but she had also stared at the nimble chess game for half a day, which consumed a lot of her mental energy. It was even more tiring than fighting for half a day. Yinju shook her head slightly. She closed her eyes and gradually calmed herself down. "Fellow Taoist, how long did you take to solve this Go puzzle?" After resting for a while, Yinju opened her eyes and asked Junyu. Since Junyu laid out this endgame, she definitely had a way to resolve it. "Nearly 500 years. Junyu didn't hide anything and said a number. Yinju was speechless. Even with Junyu's chess skills and understanding of chess, she would still need 500 years to solve this game. She didn't intend to continue trying. With her chess skills, she might not be able to solve this game even after 5,000 or 50,000 years. Yinju's heart skipped a beat as she suddenly asked, "Fellow Taoist, how long did you take to clear the 6th round?" Junyu was silent for a while before saying, "More than 100 years." The corners of Yinju's mouth curled up slightly. A trace of a smile flashed across her eyes, but she did not pursue the matter. Junyu had just said that Su Zimo cleared 6 games in a day and a night. This meant that Su Zimo took less than a day and a night to solve the 6th game. At least in this aspect, Junyu had already lost to Su Zimo. When Yinju discovered this matter, she was extremely interested. However, she did not expose this matter as a form of consideration for Junyu's reputation. Yinju had a headache looking at the 7th exquisite chess game. She did not continue trying to solve it. Instead, she gave up and casually found a futon to sit on. Yinju read a lot of books. Her horizons were broad and she was carefree. In her opinion, there were many things in this world that could not be achieved even if she exhausted her entire life. If that was the case, why should she force herself and make things difficult for herself? Giving up at the right time was also a form of wisdom. There were some things that others might be able to do, but so what? In this world, everyone was different. Junyu was indeed better than her in chess. However, in terms of her understanding of the major realms, the history of the upper realm, and the past of many powerhouses, she was far from being a chess immortal. Su Zimo closed his eyes and kept recalling the scene of the woman in black releasing the 9 palace subtle steps. He compared it with the seventh exquisite chess game in front of him. He was able to solve the first 6 exquisite chess games in a day and a night because of this method. However, the further he went, the more complicated the exquisite chess games became. It was filled with countless possibilities. The number of steps that needed to be calculated, and the control of the situation, had far exceeded Su Zimo's imagination. After deducing for half a day, not only was he unable to solve the game, his mind was already in chaos. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he took out a seed from his storage bag and held it in his palm. The moment he held the seed, his mind quickly regained clarity. The complicated clues were gradually sorted out. This seed was the Bodhi seed that he had snatched in the Jade Heaven Immortal region. The Bodhi seed was very beneficial to cultivation. Increasing one's cultivation speed was secondary. The most important thing was that holding the Bodhi seed could greatly increase a cultivator's comprehension. It could always maintain a clear mind and sharp mind. The Bodhi seed originated from the Bodhi tree, one of the 3 sacred trees of Buddhism. Legend has it that at the beginning of the upper realm, Buddha meditated under the Bodhi tree for 7 days and 7 nights. He defeated the temptation of countless evil spirits. At dawn, he achieved enlightenment and became Buddha. The 3 sacred trees of Buddhism each had their own origins, and were all related to Buddha. Legend has it that Buddha was born under the Ashoka tree, attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, and attained nirvana under the Sara tree. Because of that, these 3 trees were passed down by Buddha, and eventually became the 3 sacred trees that protected the pure land of bliss. Su Zimo held the Bodhi seed, and recalled the process of the woman in black releasing the 9 palace subtle steps. He did not miss a single detail and verified it. Unknowingly, the sun had set and night had fallen. Su Zimo held the Bodhi seed in one hand, and the black chess piece in the other. His expression was focused, and he maintained this posture without moving. Finally, at the break of dawn, Su Zimo placed the black chess piece with a loud thud. He's finally done it. Yin Zhu was invigorated and looked over hurriedly. When she saw that move, Junyu's eyes lit up. That move was the key to deciphering the 7th exquisite chess game. However, if he wanted to decipher the entire exquisite chess game, that was only the first move, and it was far from enough. After that, Su Zimo had to make at least 6 more moves. Every single move must not be wrong for him to be able to decipher the game. Junyu did not say anything and placed the white chess piece. Su Zimo's second move was extremely fast, and he did not think at all, as though he had everything planned out. Junyu was expressionless. Su Zimo's second move was not wrong either. She continued to place her piece. Su Zimo responded swiftly and placed his third piece. In the span of a few breaths, the two of them placed 7 pieces in succession. Junyu watched from the side in a daze, and even felt as though she could not keep up with their thoughts. However, by the time both of them were done placing their pieces, she looked at the game again, and realized that the black pieces had already broken free from the encirclement of the white pieces. From now on, the world was vast, and there was much to be done. End of chapter. Chapter 2570. Junyu put away the chess pieces on the chessboard and looked at Su Zimo opposite her. Retracting her initial contempt, she said in a deep voice. There are still 2 chess games left. I've studied the 8th game for more than 500 years, but I'm still clueless. I hope that you won't be stingy with your guidance, fellow Taoist Su. You flatter me. Su Zimo waved it off hurriedly. He knew his own capabilities. If he had not witnessed the black-robed woman's footwork and the help of the Bodhi seed, there was no way he could have solved the 7 exquisite chess games. However, in the past 2 days and nights, Su Zimo had gained a lot, and had already comprehended the essence of the 9 palaces' subtle steps. Junyu waved her sleeves and scattered more than 200 chess pieces on the star chessboard. The game was nearing its end. However, the situation on the chessboard was even more complicated and profound than the 7th game. Holding the Bodhi seed, Su Zimo recalled the black-robed woman's footwork and compared them. However, he could not find a solution. On the 3rd day, he still had no clue until nightfall. This game is way too complicated. It's already beyond my understanding. Su Zimo frowned slightly and shook his head. Junyu sighed softly as well. I've been deducing this game for more than 500 years. However, I can't deduce it after a few moves. As she said that, Junyu laid out her chess pieces and shared some ideas to solve it with Su Zimo. However, after 2 hours, the 2 of them still had no results from the 8th game. Let me think about it, Su Zimo said and closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened his eyes once more. His pupils that were initially clear transformed, and 2 strange purple flames appeared. Spirit potency art, see what I see. Although Wu Dao's true body was in the Avicii hell, he made use of the power of the spirit potency art to see the 8th game through the eyes of Qinglian's true body. Wu Dao's original body was in seclusion, and Su Zimo originally did not intend to disturb him. However, Su Zimo had second thoughts. The nimble chess game was extremely mysterious. Perhaps it could give Wu Dao some inspiration and help him perfect Wu Dao. The changes in Su Zimo's body were not obvious. If one didn't pay attention, almost no one would notice the strangeness in his eyes. Junyu's senses were sharp, and she seemed to have sensed something. She raised her head to look at Su Zimo and frowned slightly. Su Zimo's cultivation was still that of a rank 8 heavenly immortal. Other than the strange look in his eyes, there seemed to be no change to his body. But in Junyu's heart, there was an indescribable feeling. Su Zimo seemed to have changed. No idea why, Junyu knelt in front of Su Zimo and actually felt a pressure that she had never felt before. This kind of pressure even made her a little restless. How could this be? Junyu shook her head in confusion. Normally speaking, even if she was facing an immortal king, she wouldn't feel this way. Yunju, who was beside her, also noticed the changes in Su Zimo's eyes. She knew the existence of Wu Dao's original body, although she didn't know what had happened to Su Zimo's body for the time being. But she guessed that the person in front of her had probably been replaced by Araki Takashi from the demon domain. Mo Qing was quietly drawing at the side and didn't notice the movements here. Naturally, she didn't notice the changes in Su Zimo's body. 2 balls of purple flames burned in Su Zimo's eyes. He merged all the Dao techniques and charm on the nimble chess game into Wu Dao's furnace and refined it. In order to perfect Wu Dao, the original body had browsed through countless cultivation techniques and secret techniques, and summarized countless Dao techniques and true essence. Wu Dao's original body's eyesight and experience far surpassed Qinglian's original body, who was still in the heavenly origin realm. In the eyes of Wu Dao's original body, this star chessboard was another world. The chessboard had 19 rows and was square. In fact, it was formed by the continuous expansion of the 9 squares. And at this moment, under the gaze of Wu Dao's original body, the black-robed woman seemed to have turned into a chess piece, walking in the nimble chess game. Every step of the black-robed woman was unexpected, but if one observed carefully, they would be able to see that every step of the black-robed woman's had a deep meaning. At the end, the black-robed woman actually took a step in the void on the side of the chessboard. This step seemed useless, but it made Su Zimo's body tremble. I see. Su Zimo muttered softly. Fellow Taoist Su, have you found a way to break it? Junyu frowned and asked in disbelief. Su Zimo didn't answer, and placed a black piece. Junyu pondered for a moment, and played with a white piece, fighting on the star chessboard. Towards the end, Junyu played slower and slower. Often, she would have to think for a long time with every move. However, Su Zimo's moves were getting faster and faster. Finally, at daybreak, the 8th nimble chess game ended, and was perfectly resolved by Su Zimo. Please guide me, fellow Taoist. Junyu did not dare to delay, and stood up first. She cupped her fists and bowed before asking sincerely. This game is indeed complicated, and the concept is even more transcendent. Su Zimo said calmly, the 8th game describes the power of space. The 9 palaces' subtle steps can not only be on a single level, but also in all directions. In this way, it can be considered as opening up a new path, and creating a path of survival. At that moment, although Su Zimo was the one sitting opposite Junyu, in reality, Wu Dao's original body had yet to leave. Therefore, there was a hint of coldness when he spoke. A look of realization flashed through Junyu's eyes as she thought to herself. So the way to break the game is in space. No wonder I have no clue. In fact, even if they comprehended this level of the 9 palaces' subtle steps, Junyu and Su Zimo would not be able to release it given their cultivation realm. This level of the 9 palaces' subtle steps required a cultivator to open a grotto heaven and reach the immortal king realm. What about the 9th game? Su Zimo asked. Junyu did not hesitate and set up the 9th game. Purple flames burned in Su Zimo's eyes as he deduced the 9th game with Wu Dao's original body. Right then, Mo Qing heard Su Zimo speak from the side and felt that his tone was a little strange. She subconsciously turned back to take a look. She happened to see the 2 balls of purple flames in Su Zimo's eyes. Mo Qing opened her mouth slightly and was stunned on the spot. For some reason, when she saw the burning flames in Su Zimo's eyes, a man in a purple robe and a silver mask suddenly appeared in her mind. Back in Avicii, the same purple flames had appeared in Araki Takeshi's eyes. Their eyes were simply too similar. Mo Qing was proficient in painting and observed things in detail. Her eyesight was better than Yunju and Junyu's. She had even personally drawn a portrait of Araki Takeshi. As Araki Takeshi was wearing a silver mask, Mo Qing had spent the most effort on Araki Takeshi's eyes in that portrait. It could be said that Araki Takeshi's eyes had been imprinted in her mind. Therefore, when she saw Su Zimo's eyes, Mo Qing immediately thought of Araki Takeshi from the demon domain. Both of them should have mastered the same ocular technique, right? Mo Qing was a little confused as she thought to herself. At this moment, hurried footsteps came from outside the door, as if someone was about to barge in. Chapter 2571. Yun Ting's face was livid as he rushed to Junyu's room in a huff. Just as he was about to barge in, he thought of something and hesitated. For the past 3 days, all sorts of rumors about Su Zimo and the 4 fairies spread. Furthermore, they were getting more exaggerated and ridiculous. Initially, Yun Ting scoffed at such rumors and did not think much of them. However, for the past 3 days, many cultivators made it sound so convincing that even he was starting to doubt them. 3 days had passed and Junyu, Yunju, Mo Qing and Su Zimo had yet to appear. Finally, Yun Ting could not sit still any longer and rushed over, ready to ask about it. His sister was a princess of an immortal kingdom after all. Is that so? How could she do something so ridiculous? My
a little
sister must
curious
have
about
fallen
the
into
rumors out
Suzumo's
there.
trap.
Yinju's
Ting
mood
was
gritted
even
his
more
teeth in
relaxed.
hatred and spat.
Ting looked
What
helpless.
a gigolo from the
His
academy.
gaze turned and fell
However,
on Suzumo,
even if his
who
sister
hadn't
had
said a
lost
word.
her mind,
His anger
what
that
about
had
the
just
chess
calmed down
immortal
rose
and
again, and
painting
he
immortal?
shouted. The three
Suzumo.
fairies were fooling around with Suzumo.
Suzumo was
hiding in the
reminiscing
room
about
for
the
3
8
days and 3
exquisite chess
nights
games from before.
Initially,
when he was
Yin
jolted
Ting was
awake
filled with
by
rage.
Yin Ting's holler.
However, he looked
He
at the
hesitated
angry
when
Yin
he
Ting
reached the door
and was a little
If he
confused.
rushed in and saw
He
something
didn't know why the
indescribable,
young prince was
he
angry.
would definitely not let
Fellow
Suzumo
Taoist
off.
Yin Ting.
However, what
can I
about
do
his
for you?
sister?
After
Suzumo
all,
asked.
such things could not be exposed.
Yin Ting wanted
Yin
to
Ting
say
paced
something
back
but
and forth
stopped.
in front of the
He
door,
wanted to scold
unable
Suzumo,
to make up his mind.
but he suddenly realized
However,
that he
after
couldn't say
thinking
anything
about it,
He
Suzumo
felt that
had
the
just
heaven
played
roll
chess
ranking
with the
battle
three
was
fairies
about to
for 3
begin,
days and 3
and he
nights.
had to inform the
What was
people
wrong
in the
with
room.
that? At
Yin
that
Ting
thought
thought for a long
Yin
time,
Ting knocked on
but
the
couldn't
door
think of
gently.
anything.
The door
He
was
could
not
only
locked,
glare at
and after
Suzumo
a few
and
knocks,
curse.
it
You're
opened
worse than a
slightly.
beast.
Yin
With
Ting
that
took
said,
a deep breath
Yin
and
Ting
pushed the
turned
door
and
open.
left. There were 4
Suzumo
people
was
in the
baffled
room,
by
3
Yin
women
Ting's
and 1
scolding,
man.
and
They
did
were the
not know
book
what was
immortal
going on.
Yinju.
Yinju
Painting
said,
immortal
"Who knows what's wrong with
Chess
him
immortal
again?
Junyu and
Zimo, don't
Suzumo.
bother."
The 4 of
Let's
them
go.
were gathered together.
The heaven-ranking battle is
Yinju,
about to
Emo
begin.
Ching and Suzumo
Junyu
were
said.
staring at a
The 3
chessboard while
fairies
Emo
stood
Ching
up
was staring
and
at
headed to the
Suzumo
divine
in a daze.
firmament main hall.
This scene was
with
completely
Suzumo
out of
in
Yin
the
Ting's
divine firmament
expectations.
main hall.
He was
In less than
dumbfounded
3
and looked
days,
at the scene in
the ruins
disbelief.
caused by the
He froze
perfected
on the
immortal
spot,
battle had
and
been
his mind was
restored.
in a daze.
Tens of millions
Unable
of
to react
cultivators
for a
were
moment.
gathered here.
Hearing the
It was
commotion at the
densely
door,
packed and bustling.
Suzumo and the
Almost
3
all the
fairies snapped out of
cultivators
their
of the
daze.
4 immortal
The
kingdoms
purple flames
and
in
3
Suzumo's
major
eyes
immortal
gradually
sacks were
faded,
present,
and eventually
only a
disappeared.
few people had yet to arrive at the main hall.
Seeing that Suzumo's
the
eyes
chess
had
immortal,
returned to normal,
book immortal,
Emo
and
Ching
painting
retracted
immortal
her
aren't
gaze
here yet?
and lowered her head
Don't you
deep
know?
in thought. Another cultivator
Yinju
said,
turned to look
3
at Yin
days
Ting,
ago,
who was
after the
standing at the
perfected
door,
immortal battle
and asked,
ended, the
"Little
3
brother,
fairies and
what are you
Suzumo
doing
gathered
here?"
together.
Huh.
Is that
Junyu
true?
said coolly.
It's absolutely
3 days
true.
have already passed.
Someone saw it with
Today,
their own eyes.
the heaven proclamation
That person
ranking
said
battle
excitedly.
officially begins.
Furthermore,
They should be
the
here
3
to
fairies
inform
and
us.
Suzumo stayed in the same
But
room
he was
for
still
3
worried
days
and
and
couldn't
couldn't
help
help
but
but
ask,
without leaving.
"Sister,
Heavens,
what are the 4
could
of
it be
you doing
that
here?"
Suzumo and the 3
two of them are
fairies were in
playing
the
chess.
same room. Sister
Many
Emo Ching and I
cultivators'
are
eyes
watching
lit up.
from the side.
Do you even need to
Yinju
think
said
about
casually,
it?
if you
Yin
or I
Ting
were in
took
their
a few
shoes,
deep breaths
would we be
and
able
tried
to
to
calm
calm
and do
himself
nothing
down.
after guarding
He
the
asked
3
with
fairies
difficulty.
for 3 days
The 4
and
of
3
you
nights?
have been in this room for
Another
3 days
person
and 3
said,
nights
to
around a
think that the
chessboard?
3 fairies who
Yinju
seem
nodded.
unreachable would
More
be
or less.
together with
Yin
the heaven
Ting rolled
immortal
his
from the
eyes.
academy.
Yinju saw
What's
Yin
so good
Ting's
about
strange
Suzumo?
expression
He's
and
someone
frowned
who
slightly.
ascended from the
She
lower
asked
world,
in return,
and his
"What else do you
cultivation realm
think?
can't even
It's not
compare
what I
to him."
think."
The
Yin
3
Ting
fairies
pointed
must
at
be
the door
blind,
and
said bitterly.
"Hee, you have
A
nothing to do
cultivator
here.
laughed with a
You
wretched
don't know how many
expression.
rumors there are
There
out
must
there.
be something
Rumors
extraordinary
stop
about
with the
Suzumo.
wise.
3
Junyu's
days and 3
expression
nights.
was calm, and she didn't
TSK.
care.
Flying
innocent
immortal
knows
knows
the
the truth. Emo Ching's
Zither
tone was
immortal
indifferent
Mengyao smiled
because of Meng
and
Yao's
was secretly
slander during the
delighted when
immortal
she heard the
discussions in the crowd.
There had been many
Out of the 4
rumors about
fairies,
her over the years.
3 of them were
She
rumored
couldn't
to
be
be
bothered.
involved with someone and were no longer unreachable. Her status would definitely rise again and surpass the other 3 fairies. If that's the case, the only one who can truly be called a fairy among the 4 fairies is probably Zither immortal Mengyao. A cultivator sighed. Not necessarily. Another person whispered. Let me tell you, Zither immortal Mengyao is the same as the 3 fairies. She's also involved with Suzumo. Huh. There's such a thing? Of course. Otherwise, why would Fairy Mengyao suddenly make things difficult for Suzumo and cause the 3 fairies to appear one after another? That's right. Since we can't have Suzumo, we might as well destroy him. Zither Immortal's love turned into hatred. What an ill-fated relationship. When she heard that, Mengyao was so angry that she trembled and her face turned pale. Chapter 2572. What a bunch of nonsense. Meng Yao was enraged as she turned around and soared into the air. She looked in the direction of the voice and plucked a few strings in the void. The sound of the zither echoed endlessly, suppressing the discussions of many cultivators before long. Who was the one spouting nonsense earlier on? Meng Yao looked at the crowd with a frosty expression and questioned loudly with a cold tone that was filled with killing intent. There were way too many cultivators in the Divine Firmament main hall. There were more than 10 million of them, and it was a dark patch at a glance. Meng Yao could only determine the approximate location of the voices, but did not know who were the ones who were gossiping. Meng Yao was filled with killing intent. Which of the few people who spoke earlier on would dare to step forward to die? Everyone kept quiet out of fear, and did not dare to make a sound. Good. Meng Yao was so angry that she laughed instead. It's fine if you don't come out. At most, I'll just kill a few more. She would rather kill the wrong person did not even bother to argue against the rumors. Meng Yao's fingertips moved, and however, the essence chi in the void seemed to be extremely agitated beneath her fingers, and was even willing to kill someone. Music sounded it was once obvious who was superior between the two of them. The sound of the zither contained with a fake smile. Killing intent. Since they're just rumors, cultivators could not defend against it. Meng Yao, and their eyes bulged. Are you so nervous because the rumors about you are true? Immediately after, of course they're false. The bodies of those cultivators exploded into a blood mist. Question was extremely powerful. Spirits were destroyed along with their bodies heal instantly. Some of the surrounding cultivators felt that the matter between the three fairies and Su Zimo were severely injured way as well. Too ridiculous. Buzz, it's impossible. The second zither music sounded. Right. I didn't believe cultivators who first stood the first zither music. The three fairies were severely injured, and why would they take a liking to an intersect disciple of the academy? Descended. In Meng Yao's reaction is so big. Another dozen or so cultivators between her and Su Zimo? The expressions of many cultivators younger brother, Duke Nobody expected died at the hands of Su Zimo. The two of them have a blood feud in public. Meng Yao realized that she can't be with because of a few words of gossip, and hated him out of love. It was clear that some of the cultivators who died earlier on had suffered an undeserved calamity. Many cultivators looked at Meng Yao with a trace of pity in their eyes to voice their anger. Meng Yao was so angry that her lungs were about to explode when she sensed the gazes around her, and heard the discussions in the crowd. Yin Qing arrived at the Divine Firmament main hall at this moment and witnessed the immortal King Qingyang of the Divine Firmament Palace. To think that the zither immortal would be Divine Firmament Palace Meng Yao glared at Yun Ting and descended above the main hall. This has nothing to do with here. Mind your own business. Immortal King Qingyang nodded. You still want to attack me? Yun Ting sneered again, fearless. Everyone knows what flashed in Meng Yao's eyes. Now I announced that the heavenless of noble status officially begins. So she had her reservations. As soon as he finished speaking, she couldn't kill him in front of so many people. Waved his sleeves. She could teach Yun Ting a lesson. Stirred up a wave of heaven and Meng Yao, if you want to fight, in the middle of the Divine Firmament main hall. At this moment, another voice sounded suddenly not far away and became the battlefield of the heavenless ranking battle and arrived at the Divine Firmament Palace in the blink of an eye. Held at the same time. The one who spoke was the Book Fairy on the huge rock in the middle. When the three fairies came close from the sky and everyone realized that there was another person up layers behind them. This person slowly from the academy, and his aura kept rising. When Meng Yao saw the four of them appear at the same time, Yun Qing could not wait any longer, and had been waiting for this moment. Still don't know about the various rumors about you all these days, right? Yun Ting said loudly. Very exciting. Meng Yao praised, the ranking battle clapping her hands and smiling. Among the Divine Firmament was calm as she said, "Only you are worthy of being my opponent. I'm innocent." In Yun Ting's heart, he added another sentence. The two of them still said the same thing. I'm going to beat you up, looked like they didn't care at all. Unforgettable lesson. Although the two fairies were so calm, stay away from my many sister cultivators began to mutter in their hearts. The two of them had already agreed to a battle doubt the rumors without hesitation. Su Zimo arrived on the gigantic stone battlefield in a flash. In fact, their actions were tantamount to breaking the rules of the Heaven List ranking battle. However, immortal King Qingyang did not say anything, nor did he intend to stop them. Zhong Feiyu and Qin Gu also did not express their opinions immediately. Both of them had their own plans in mind. Su Zimo and Yin Ting were fighting fiercely, and they would just watch from the sidelines. When two tigers fought, one of them would be injured. No matter who was injured, it would be beneficial to them. It would be best if Su Zimo and Yin Ting were both injured. Only then would they have a chance to win and compete for the top spot on the heaven list. Who do you think will win? Junyu glanced sideways at Yunju beside her and suddenly asked. I don't know. Yunju shook her head slightly and looked at the two people on the huge rock battlefield. She sighed softly. Between the two of them, it didn't matter to her who won or lost. She only hoped that the two of them would be safe and not fight to the death. However, she did not say this to Yin Ting or Su Zimo. This was because when the battle reached its peak, it was difficult for both sides to control their strength. No matter who she asked to be merciful, it would be unfair to the other. Chapter 2573. Bring it on! Yin Ting roared. Lightning flashed in his eyes, and his voice rumbled like thunder. It was filled with endless majesty. Not only was Yin Ting proficient in Sword Dao, but he was also extremely accomplished in Thunder Dao. The surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi surged wildly into Yin Ting's body. His aura was rising rapidly. No matter what, Yin Ting was a Tier 9 heavenly immortal, a realm above Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not dare to underestimate his opponent, and did not hold back either. He released his innate ability, 6 Tusks Divine Power. 6 sharp ivory tusks grew rapidly from his back. His body was filled with the power of the divine power. His physical body, primordial spirit, bloodline and other powers surged. Although Su Zimo was a Tier 8 heavenly immortal, he was no weaker than Yin Ting in terms of strength. Fight! The two of them attacked at almost the same time. Comet strikes the moon. Sun-piercing rainbow. Yin Ting relied on his strong resentment to release 2 peerless divine powers of Sword Dao in the blink of an eye. A streak of fiery light, and a streak of white light split in different directions, and pierced towards Su Zimo. They were so sharp that they seemed to be able to pierce through everything in the world. These 2 divine powers of Sword Dao were extremely lethal. With Yin Ting's understanding of Sword Dao, the power of these 2 divine powers was multiplied. Lightning Prison. Yin Ting's 3rd supreme divine ability descended as soon as the 2 supreme divine abilities were unleashed. Crack. Dark clouds covered the sky above the giant rock battlefield. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A thick bolt of lightning descended from the sky and circled Su Zimo, forming a huge lightning prison that tried to trap him within. Su Zimo's reaction was even faster. At the same time that he released the divine power of 6 fangs, he also summoned ethereal wings, zephyr thunder wings and rock wings. The 3 different wings stacked together, and Su Zimo's speed increased exponentially. He turned into a streak of golden light, and disappeared on the spot. With a rumble, the 9 heavens divine lightning struck. Su Zimo was no longer in the lightning prison. However, the 2 sword techniques didn't disappear because of this. Yin Ting had already locked onto Su Zimo's aura. Although Su Zimo's movement technique's speed was astonishing, within the limited range of the giant rock battlefield, he couldn't display the greatest effect. The fiery light and the white rainbow in the air followed Su Zimo's trail, and turned around, chasing after him at an even faster speed. Spirit Turtle Shield. Su Zimo no longer retreated. He channeled his essence spirit, and released another innate divine power. Yin Ting's 2 sword arts had to be dealt with. Otherwise, it would be like gangrene attached to the bone, following him like a shadow and difficult to remove. It would pose a great threat to his future operations. Su Zimo had gained a new understanding of the Spirit Turtle Shield after practicing the secret technique of the Hell-Suppressing Cauldron. The defensive power of that innate divine power had already surpassed its original limits. Su Zimo had cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness before. However, as his cultivation realm increased continuously, and he cultivated a few taboo secret manuals over the years, he had his own understanding and insights towards Dao techniques as well. He was already gradually surpassing the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. The power of divine powers converged continuously, forming a gigantic turtle shell that blocked in front of Su Zimo. The back of the tortoise shell was covered with mysterious and complicated patterns that glowed brightly. Not only that, there was a water screen that was extremely heavy on the turtle shell. It seemed to be flowing continuously with a dark glow. Buzz! 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 The fiery light formed by Comet striking moon was the first to descend, colliding against the spirit turtle shield with a strange sound. The power of water and fire collided and green smoke billowed. Clang! At the same time, the white rainbow descended and pierced through the green smoke, piercing the turtle shell. Crack! 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 Su Zimo shuddered and he heard cracking sounds. The spirit turtle shield that was even stronger than his Dao technique had already been destroyed by Yin Ting's two-sword divine powers. Although the spirit turtle shield defended against the two supreme divine powers almost perfectly, Su Zimo could still sense the extreme sharpness behind him. Given Su Zimo's current cultivation and powerful essence spirit, he might not be able to break through the spirit turtle shield, even if 10, or even 100 grade 9 heavenly immortals released their supreme divine powers at the same time. But now, Yin Ting's two supreme divine powers were able to break through his strongest defensive divine power. All these years, he had been improving rapidly and Yin Ting had not stopped as well. Both of them were even stronger and more terrifying than they were thousands of years ago in the Emperor's tomb. Great Five-Element Sword. Yin Ting's attacks did not stop, and he released a second wave of attacks before long. Many years ago, a powerful sword immortal was born in the Sword Dao of the Heavenly Realm. He specialized in the Five Elements Sword Dao, and eventually entered the Emperor Realm. He dominated the 3,000 realms, and had few enemies. And in this life, Yin Ting was the successor of the Five Elements Sword Dao. All this information was recorded in the prediction of the Heaven ranking. Yin Ting alone had obtained more than a dozen Sword Dao legacies. And among these Sword Dao inheritances, even the weakest one was an immortal king. Many of them had left behind inheritances, and they were all Imperial Emperor experts in the Sword Dao. Yin Ting formed a sword finger with both hands, and pointed in the direction of Su Zimo. Buzz! The sound of a sharp sword being unsheathed could be heard around Su Zimo, and the void trembled slightly. Immediately after, an endless stream of divine power condensed around Su Zimo, transforming into 5 long swords of different colors. Each long sword represented a different Dao technique, covering metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. They revolved around Su Zimo rapidly, and the tip of the sword locked onto Su Zimo firmly. It was a sealing attack from the power of the 5 elements. Yin Ting was the #1 Sword Dao person in the heavenly realm for many years. Sword Dao represented the pinnacle of killing. The spirit turtle shield just now was broken by Yin Ting's 2 supreme divine powers. If he was only passively defending, Su Zimo would not be able to withstand Yin Ting's endless attacks. Since that was the case, he would fight offense with offense. At that thought, Su Zimo activated his essence spirit, and his hand seals changed continuously, releasing 6 different but related divine powers in succession. Heavenly Dao, Human Dao, Shura Dao, Hungry Ghost Dao, Beast Dao, Hell Dao. 6 paths of reincarnation condense. Su Zimo used his powerful essence spirit that far surpassed a stage 9 heaven immortal to condense the 6 paths together, releasing a huge vortex that spun continuously, as if it could devour and refine everything in the world. The 6 paths of reincarnation was originally a supreme divine power. However, for some reason after many eras, no one could comprehend the true meaning of the 6 paths of reincarnation. As time passed, the supreme divine ability gradually became a peerless divine ability. Even so, the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation was still a top-notch existence among supreme divine powers. The great 5 elements sword spun continuously, trying to kill Su Zimo. On the other hand, the huge vortex formed by the 6 paths of reincarnation pulled at the 5 gigantic swords continuously. The 2 different divine powers collided and devoured each other continuously. Chapter 2574. The 5 gigantic swords were gradually devoured by the 6 paths of reincarnation. At the same time, The gigantic vortex could not withstand the sharpness of the great five elements sword, and dissipated as well. Permitha Bridge. This time round, Su Zimo took the initiative to attack and released his peerless divine power. Endless heaven-earth essence chi gathered beneath his feet. In the blink of an eye, it formed an ancient bridge that shone with golden light and extended towards Yunting. The ancient bridge was filled with runes that condensed Su Zimo's Dao technique and reached the other shore. Wind summoning. Countless streaks of sword chi intertwined and buzzed in Yunting's palms. He closed his hands and two balls of sword chi collided, creating a massive reaction that formed a storm that connected the heavens and earth that swept towards the Permitha Bridge. This was not a simple hurricane. Instead, it was a sword chi that was condensed from countless sword chi and could kill all living beings and destroy all life. Clang! 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 The ancient bridge resisted the sword chi storm and could not advance any further. The divine powers of both sides collided rapidly. The runes on the ancient bridge flickered. At the same time, the sword chi storm swayed continuously and could collapse at any moment. Without waiting for the outcome of the two peerless divine powers, Yunting's hand seals changed once more, and he pointed at Su Zimo from afar, hollering, "Summon rain!" Whoosh! A torrential rain poured down. Before the rain landed on him, Su Zimo felt a faint stinging pain on his head. He raised his head slightly and looked over with narrowed eyes. Every single drop of rain was sharp like a needle or sword. This was no ordinary rain. It was a terrifying sword rain. When Yunting released this ability, it had already undergone a metamorphosis, and its power had reached the pinnacle. It was no exaggeration to say that every single drop of rain could kill a grade 9 heavenly immortal. The sword rain enveloped the entire area of the gigantic stone battlefield. It could be said that there was no chance of dodging against that terrifying divine power. Many cultivators were shocked by what they saw. Everyone had long guessed that this battle between paragons would definitely be earth-shattering. However, they did not expect the two of them to release such a terrifying attack without holding back the moment they exchanged blows. One after another, the two of them unleashed top-notch killing exceptional divine abilities without stopping to rest. Such a divine ability that was released without any intervals had an extremely high requirement on the strength of one's essence spirit. If one's primordial spirit wasn't condensed enough, it wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure and would collapse on the spot. Zhong Feiyu smirked and thought to himself, "Fight! Fight! The more you two fight, the better. It's best if both sides suffer." Many cultivators in the crowd looked worried. The battle between the two sides had just begun, and it had already become such an intense stalemate. If either side was the slightest bit careless, then they would suffer heavy injuries, or even die. On the boulder battlefield, in the face of Yunting's sword rain, Su Zimo remained fearless. He formed a seal with both hands, and suddenly took a step forward. As his foot landed, a huge green lotus flower appeared beneath his feet. The lotus bloomed, emitting tens of thousands of rays of light. Thousands of auspicious colors enveloped Su Zimo within, making him appear incomparably divine. Every time Su Zimo took a step, a lotus would appear under his feet. Peerless divine ability, lotus blooming with every step. With each step, everything would become a pure land. The green light emitted by the lotus continuously clashed with the dense sword rain that was descending from the sky. This exceptional divine ability was rarely seen in the Nine Clouds immortal realm. Lotus blooming step was a Buddhist divine ability. Only those who were proficient in Buddhism could possibly comprehend this exceptional divine ability. Even in the Buddhist sects, lotus blooming step was considered a top-notch divine ability. Against Yunting's terrifying sword rain, it was not at a disadvantage at all. Su Zimo walked towards Yunting, his hands forming seals. Whoosh! Suddenly, 4 balls of flames of different colors appeared beside him. Under his guidance, the balls of flames quickly gathered together, forming an even bigger fireball. It was like a blazing sun, emitting a heart-palpitating heat. This is the secret technique. A heaven immortal in the crowd of the great Jin immortal nation exclaimed. This person had escaped death in Juele City, and witnessed the power of this flame secret technique with his own eyes. It could be said to be apocalyptic. This heaven immortal seemed to recall the scene of the past. His body trembled uncontrollably as he said, "This is the secret technique that burned Juele City to the ground. Everyone was buried in the sea of fire, their bodies and souls destroyed." In the flaming sun immortal nation, Lai Xian, who was predicted to be fifth on the heaven leaderboard, was speechless. He had faced this secret technique before and knew how terrifying it was. Back then, he had used this secret technique to comprehend the Flaming Sun Sutra to the extreme. If he had been in anyone else's place on the battlefield, he would not have been able to hold on. After the huge fireball formed in front of Su Zimo, even the sword rain that was falling from the sky evaporated instantly. "Go!" Su Zimo pushed the fireball in his hand in Yin Ting's direction. At the same time, a divine sense flame entered the fireball. Pentati Dao Fire. Boom! The fireball arrived in front of Yin Ting and exploded instantly. The huge stone battlefield was surrounded by flames, and the flames soared into the sky. The temperature of the entire divine firmament main hall rose rapidly. 4 symbol sword formation. Yin Ting hollered from within the flames. Immediately after, 4 blinding sword chi condensed rapidly in the flames, transforming into 4 sacred beasts that guarded the 4 directions. The Azure Dragon Sacred Beast summoned clouds and rain. The White Tiger Sacred Beast's killing intent surged. The Vermilion Bird Sacred Beast was born from flames. The Black Tortoise Sacred Beast overturned rivers and seas. The 4 sacred beasts released completely different powers to suppress the Pentati Dao Fire. Even so, the Pentati Dao Fire could not be extinguished. Splash! The sound of a tsunami could be heard from Yin Ting's body. Against the powerful flames, Yin Ting could not withstand it, and channeled his blood chi first. He was like an unsheathed sword that revealed its sharpness. Yin Ting's blood chi was way too strong. Every drop of blood contained a destructive and sharp sword intent. Chapter 2575. When this sword intent burst forth, not only on the huge stone battlefield, but even the sword cultivators and sword immortals around the divine firmament Great Hall felt a strong shock and impact on their sword hearts. Many sword immortals' swords were trembling, as if they wanted to submit. Mortal Slayer Sword Art. In this world, only the Mortal Slayer Sword Art could unleash such a terrifying killing intent. It could even turn heaven and earth upside down. "I can't beat him." Lai Xian's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "Just this sword art alone is enough for me to resist." Yin Ting is indeed the top sword Dao cultivator in the heaven world. Even in the sword world, I'm afraid no one can compare to him with this talent. Brother Su has the heavenly slayer and earthly slayer sword art. He should be able to resist it. Xie Qingqing was not confident. Just the heavenly slayer and earthly slayer might not be enough. Lai Xian shook his head slightly. In the mountain and sea immortal sect, Qing Gu's expression changed as he said softly, "The Mortal Slayer Sword Art is Yin Ting's most powerful move. It seems like the victor is about to be decided." Even the onlooking cultivators felt that the Mortal Slayer Sword Art's power was unstoppable. No one could imagine what kind of pressure Su Zimo, who was facing Yin Ting, was facing at this moment. Heaven Slayer Shifting Stars. Earth Slayer Dragon and Snake Rise. Su Zimo did not hesitate to unleash the Heavenly Slayer and Earthly Slayer Sword Art. Dragon and Snake combined attack Heaven and Earth Slayer. Man Slayer Heaven and Earth Overturn. Yin Ting's voice rang out, but his figure had already disappeared. In his place was a long sword that could tear the heavens and earth apart. The 3 sword arts were all extremely lethal, but the Mortal Slayer Sword Art also contained an unyielding will that went against the trend and fought against heaven and earth. In terms of intent, the Mortal Slayer Sword Art firmly suppressed the Heavenly Slayer and Earthly Slayer. Boom! The Mortal Slayer Sword Art and Heaven and Earth Slayer collided, erupting with a deafening explosion. Countless sword chi surged and splashed in all directions. In an instant, the entire giant stone battlefield was filled with extremely sharp sword chi. Any 9th-tier heaven immortal who intruded into it would be shredded to death by these sword energies. After a short stalemate, the dragons and snakes formed by Heavenly Assassin and Earthly Assassin collapsed and died. As for the mortal slaughter sword that Yin Ting had transformed into, it was still standing between heaven and earth, exuding a monstrous killing intent and endless sharpness. The killer of man continued to slash down. Su Zimo's expression didn't change. He was extremely calm. His fingertip quickly wrote a large word in the air, kill. Peerless theurgy kill formula. Under normal circumstances, this peerless theurgy would not be able to resist the human slaughtering sword art. But at this moment, the triple kill of heaven, earth, and man had been fully released. The killing intent on the boulder battlefield had reached its peak. Su Zimo made use of the surrounding murderous intent to unleash the kill character art, pushing the power of the peerless skill to the maximum instantly. The kill character formula not only contained the killing intent of the heavenly kill and earthly kill, but it also absorbed the killing intent of many people. The huge kill character in the air turned incomparably red, as if it was dyed with blood. Even book immortal Yunju, who was known for her handwriting, had never seen such a terrifying kill incantation. So smart. Even Green Sun Immortal King, who was in the middle of the hall, couldn't help but praise when he saw this scene. If this kill incantation had been released earlier, it definitely wouldn't have been as powerful as it was now. It seemed like it was released earlier or later, but the power that erupted was completely different. This was the embodiment of battle talent. Boom! The killer of man and the kill incantation collided, neither giving way to the other. Even with the power of the human slaughtering sword art, it couldn't break the kill incantation. Ha 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 ha! Yun Ting's laughter suddenly rang out in the boulder battlefield. Awesome, awesome, Yun Ting said loudly. Su Zimo, you're really something. You actually thought of using this method to break my human slaughtering sword art. As soon as he finished speaking, the human slaughtering sword and the kill incantation both collapsed and collapsed. In the vast killing intent, Yun Ting's figure flashed past and charged toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo stomped his feet and soared into the air, charging toward Yun Ting as well. Both of them chose to engage in close combat almost at the same time. I remember that Yun Ting seems to have other trump cards that he hasn't used yet. He's still using the extreme sword, the successor of the heart sword path. Could it be that he's holding back? Su Zimo should have some trump cards as well. For example, the theurgy that can reduce one's lifespan, and the secret technique that killed the executioner in an instant on the battlefield in Shura. What do you know? Another cultivator sneered and said, how many theurgies and secret techniques did they use just now? Moreover, each one of them is a top-tier killing technique, which consumes a lot of primordial spirits. They didn't continue to use their trump cards, because their primordial spirits have been exhausted and are extremely weak. After a pause, the person said, they can't even use their primordial spirit secret techniques, let alone theurgies and secret techniques. Zhong Feiyu's judgment was similar to that person's. If it weren't for that, Su Zimo and Yun Ting wouldn't have switched from a battle of theurgies and secret techniques to close combat. What a pity. Zhong Feiyu looked slightly disappointed. Ever since he was scared away by Su Zimo on the battlefield in Shura, he had asked his master for a primordial spirit defense Dharma treasure to deal with Su Zimo's reverse scale secret technique. Judging from the current situation, it seemed that he wouldn't need it. On the battlefield, in the blink of an eye, the two sides were close to each other. Yun Ting clenched his fingers and sword blood circled around his body, emitting a sharp aura. He stabbed towards Su Zimo's glabella. At the same time, a cold aura rose in his eyes. His pupils constricted and two cold sword lights shot out. The surrounding temperature plummeted. I technique Ice Soul Sword Eyes. Enveloped by the two sword lights, Su Zimo's blood was about to freeze. If he could use his blood chi, this cold aura wouldn't be a threat to Qinglian's true body. But now, Su Zimo could only fight with his eye technique. Illumination Eye. Without hesitation, Su Zimo released a blinding beam of light from his right eye that collided with the two incoming sword lights. His left eye was still shrouded by a mysterious dark power, and he could not release his nether fluorescent eye. However, Yin Ting's ice soul sword eyes were extremely powerful. Back in the Emperor's tomb, it suppressed the illumination eye. Today their eye techniques clashed once more. The illumination eye was still unable to defend against the ice soul sword eyes. Although the heat of the illumination eye dispelled the sword intent of the ice soul sword eyes, it could not defend against the coldness of the eye technique. Instantly, Su Zimo's body was shrouded in a layer of frost, and his movements were hindered. At the same time, Yin Ting's sword fingers were only inches away from his glabella. A smile appeared on Yin Ting's face. Even though Yin Ting's eye technique was slightly suppressed, he managed to seize the opportunity and win with a single strike. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and let out a deafening roar from the depths of his throat. Instantly the world went silent. Chapter 2576. The roar contained a supreme will. It was so powerful and dignified that it even made the hearts of the cultivators present tremble. Dragon Roar secret skill was released. When Yin Ting saw Su Zimo open his mouth, he realized what was about to happen and hurriedly released his sound domain technique as well. Slash! Yin Ting shouted, and a long sword condensed from sound suddenly appeared in the air. A sword formed from sound. However, the moment the sword was formed, it was shattered by Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill. Cracks appeared on the sword, and it dissipated rapidly. In terms of visual techniques, Yin Ting was superior to Su Zimo. However, he was no match for Su Zimo in terms of sound domain secret skills. The Dragon Roar secret skill had long surpassed the original sound domain secret skills of dragons. It was fused with many Dao techniques such as thunder, the roar of the dragon and phoenix, and the roar of the green dragon. Even true dragons could not defend against Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill. Of course, the Dragon Roar secret skill could not hurt Yin Ting either. Yin Ting's physique was strong, and his sword blood was ferocious. Even without releasing a sound sword, the Dragon Roar secret skill alone could not injure him. However, the Dragon Roar secret skill still caused Yin Ting's movements to pause momentarily. That slight pause was more than enough for Su Zimo. He took half a step back and opened up space slightly. Chanting Sanskrit, he conjured a Buddhist seal and smashed it towards Yin Ting's sword finger. Bang! Fist and finger collided. Yin Ting's sword finger could even penetrate perfect heaven-grade dermic treasures, and only the strongest Khanate heaven-grade dermic treasures could take it head-on. What was even more frightening was that Yin Ting's sword finger contained an extreme sharpness and the terrifying power of his physical body and sword blood. However, when Yin Ting's sword finger struck Su Zimo's fist, it was as though it had struck an immovable and incomparably tough mountain. Yin Ting's accumulated strength was thwarted, and he felt a sharp pain from his sword finger, as though it was about to be snapped. Psst! Yin Ting gasped slightly with a look of shock in his eyes. There was nothing his sword finger could not penetrate. What body of flesh and blood could withstand it? Back then in the Emperor's tomb, when he released his chi and blood, Su Zimo had to avoid the sharp edge, and his body was covered with small injuries. Back then, Su Zimo had only been able to fight him by relying on his powerful body's self-healing ability. He didn't expect that Su Zimo would be able to fight him head-on and gain the upper hand in close combat today, just by relying on his physical body. Today is different from the past. Over the years, Yin Ting had continued to grow, forging the sword body and condensing the sword blood. As for Su Zimo's Qinglian true body, its potential was even greater. It had already grown to the 11th grade, almost reaching the peak. Moreover, Qinglian's real body also practiced the body refining chapter of the 3 Purity Jade books, the Divine Elephant Breathing Technique, the Void Thunder Technique, and many other powerful techniques. Even without using her blood qi, the physique of Qinglian's true body could be said to be unprecedented. Furthermore, Su Zimo released his Six Fangs divine power, and his physical strength increased once more. Earlier on, he made use of the Dragon Roar secret skill to turn the tables and release the Sanskrit of the Buddhist monasteries, to complement the supreme dermic seal of the Great Vajrawheel seal. The Great Vajrawheel seal was unshakable and indestructible. In just a short exchange, Su Zimo had already released many powerful trump cards and gained the upper hand with a show of strength. Yun Ting felt a sharp pain in his sword finger. His sword blood surged and instantly the pain was resolved. However, the moment his mind wavered, Su Zimo noticed it, and immediately after, he opened his mouth and let out another Sanskrit sound. At the same time, Su Zimo's hands conjured hand seals once more and released the Great Mount Meru seal, crushing down on Yun Ting's head. Rumble! Boom! Right in front of many cultivators, an incomparably majestic mountain peak appeared in midair. It was even taller and majestic than Divine Firmament Palace, and had a torrential aura. Great Mount Meru? Immortal King Qingyang narrowed his eyes when he saw the mountain peak. This kid's attainments in Buddhism have already reached such a level. He can actually conjure the sacred mountain of the pure land of bliss. Immortal King Qingyang was extremely interested in Su Zimo's identity and background. He even suspected that Su Zimo might be from the pure land of bliss. Gasps could be heard from the surroundings of the Divine Firmament Palace. Many cultivators felt suffocated when they saw such a majestic mountain descend with a heaven-shaking might. How could there be a living being in this world that could withstand such a mountain peak? Lai Xian had a complicated expression when he saw the image of the Great Mount Meru. Back in the battlefield of Shura, he had been suppressed by Su Zimo's 2 dermic seals and had been defeated. At that time, Su Zimo had just fought a fierce battle and was only a stage 7 heaven immortal. Now this Great Mount Meru was even more powerful than the one he faced in the battlefield of Shura. Under the support of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, the power of any Buddhist Tao technique would increase explosively. The Great Mount Meru seemed to have enveloped the entire Divine Firmament Palace. Yun Ting, who was on the huge stone battlefield, had nowhere to hide. He could only take it head-on. Rumble! Countless rubble rolled down as a large shadow covered the sky. The momentum was terrifying. Boom! Yun Ting raised one hand, and the sword blood in his body hummed. It was as if countless sharp swords had pierced out of his body to block the descending Great Mount Meru. Under the Great Mount Meru, there was only a seemingly small figure. He raised one arm to the sky, and his figure was as straight as a sword, unmoving. Princess Yun Ting. The many cultivators of the Zishuan Immortal Kingdom were agitated. Their blood boiled as they shouted. This was Yun Ting. Even the Great Meru Mountain couldn't crush him, couldn't cover the sharpness of his body. If Yun Ting's sword blood was allowed to continue attacking, it would not be long before the Great Mount Meru was broken. However, Su Zimo did not give Yun Ting any chance to catch his breath, and attacked once more. His fists were like seals, his palms were like sabers, his fingers were like swords, and his elbows were like spears. His fists, palms, fingers, claws, elbows, knees, and shoulders could release incomparably ferocious attacks from every single part of his body. Yun Ting's melee combat strength was extremely terrifying as well. Sword blood flowed through his body. His sword Tao had already fused into every single inch of his flesh, blood, and bones, cultivating to every corner of his body. Even his eyebrows, hair, and the fine hairs on his body were all lethal weapons. Against Su Zimo's attacks, Yun Ting supported the Great Mount Meru with one hand and fought against Su Zimo with the other in an intense battle. The surrounding cultivators watched intently, not daring to blink. Melee combat was extremely dangerous, and the outcome could be determined in the blink of an eye. As such, no one dared to be distracted. Initially, both sides were able to exchange blows. However, as time passed by, Yun Ting gradually fell into a disadvantage and retaliated less. He was forced into a defensive stance and was completely suppressed by Su Zimo. Apart from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, Su Zimo's melee combat techniques were also fused with the killing techniques of dragons. They were all killing techniques that were tempered through countless life and death battles. In reality, Yun Ting's melee combat techniques were not weak. In fact, it could even be said that he was comparable to Su Zimo. However, he was fighting single-handedly after all, and it was already rare for him to be able to persevere until now. Chapter 2577. Yin Ting is going to lose. Xie Qingqing murmured softly. Many cultivators could tell that Yin Ting was bound to lose if the situation was allowed to develop. Not necessarily. Lai Xian shook his head gently. Yin Ting's methods are definitely not limited to this. Lai Xian's expression was conflicted. As a reincarnated perfected immortal who was cultivating anew, he had not expected to encounter peerless monster incarnates, such as Yin Ting and Su Zimo in this lifetime. Back in the battlefield of the Shura, he was defeated by Su Zimo's 2 dermic seals of the Buddhist monasteries. However, Yin Ting was able to support the Great Meru Mountain with one hand and fight against Su Zimo with the other until now. The difference between him and Yin Ting was obvious. On the gigantic stone battlefield, Yin Ting realized the severity of the situation as well. Sword light surged in his eyes, and he channeled his blood chi to its limits, breaking through the upper limit of tsunami blood. Suddenly, a huge blood-red longsword appeared behind Yin Ting, exuding an extremely sharp murderous aura. The blood-colored sword was even more terrifying than the human-slaying sword intent. Back in the Emperor's tomb, Su Zimo already felt an intense sense of danger when Yin Ting released that bloodline phenomenon. That blood-colored sword was definitely a threat to him. It was the same today. Yin Ting no longer held back and released his bloodline phenomenon. Xing! The blood-colored sword tore through the air and sliced the Great Meru Mountain into 2. Even the majestic and heavy Great Meru Mountain could not defend against the sharpness of the blood-colored sword. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze slightly, and his hair stood on end. Even after thousands of years, that blood-colored sword still sent chills down his spine, as though a calamity was about to descend the next moment. Back in the Emperor's tomb, Su Zimo neutralized Yin Ting's bloodline phenomenon by releasing Essence Spirit secret skills consecutively, causing a strong impact on Yin Ting's Essence Spirit. He only managed to defeat Yin Ting because he did not allow the latter to condense his bloodline phenomenon. Su Zimo did not intend to use his Essence Spirit secret skills in the fight for the top of the heaven ranking today. Yin Ting clearly had the same thoughts. The two of them had never talked about this before, but this was the tacit understanding between the two of them. Moreover, Yin Ting had said that he hadn't fully grasped this bloodline phenomenon and hadn't been able to condense it immediately. But now, Yin Ting was clearly in control of the blood-red sword. Su Zimo. Suddenly, Yin Ting's voice rang out in Su Zimo's mind. Do you know what will happen when the heavenly kill, earthly kill, and human kill come together? It seems to be a supreme divine ability, Su Zimo said. Not bad. Yin Ting continued. When the 3 sword techniques combine into one, it will evolve into a supreme divine ability, the immortal slaying sword. You. Upon hearing this, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Staring at the blood-colored sword on Yin Ting's back, he seemed to have understood something. Yin Ting nodded and said, You're right. My bloodline phenomenon is the immortal extermination sword. Back in the Emperor's tomb, I had only cultivated the embryonic form of the immortal extermination sword and hadn't fully grasped it. All these years, I've deduced and perfected the immortal extermination sword. Although it hasn't reached the level of a supreme divine ability, it's already at the threshold of one. Impressive, Su Zimo could not help but exclaim internally. Indeed, Yin Ting's talent in the sword Dao was unparalleled. Even without the heavenly kill, earthly kill and human kill, he was able to cultivate the embryonic form of the immortal extermination sword with the Dao-slaying sword art alone. Furthermore, all these years, he had perfected his control of the immortal extermination sword through his deductions and cultivation. However, without the heavenly kill and earthly kill, Yin Ting's immortal extermination sword was ultimately not perfect, and had yet to reach the level of a supreme divine ability. As long as it was not a supreme divine ability, Su Zimo would still have a chance. The moment Yin Ting released the immortal extermination sword bloodline phenomenon, the cultivators present felt their hearts skip a beat. In fact, many cultivators felt chills run down their necks, as though a sharp blade was hanging over their necks that could slice off their heads at any moment. Immortal extermination sword. Immortal King Green Sun murmured softly with a hint of fear in his eyes. On the gigantic stone battlefield, Yun Ting carried the immortal extermination sword on his back and instantly reversed his aura. He strode towards Su Zimo and shouted, "Su Zimo, come on! Let me see what else you have up your sleeves." Su Zimo's expression was calm as he conjured hand seals continuously with both hands. Above his head, a vast and boundless star field suddenly appeared. This star field could be roughly divided into 7 regions. Only one of the regions was dark and lightless, while 6 of the star fields had already been lit up. Billions of stars emitted resplendent starlight that scattered down and surged into Su Zimo's acupoints. Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram. In front of everyone, Su Zimo could not even use his bloodline, let alone release the creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon. The only thing he could release was the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram. Su Zimo had already cultivated that secret skill to greater mastery and lit up 6 star domains. With the help of the power of billions of stars, its power was comparable to a bloodline phenomenon once released. When he saw that, Yun Ting shook his head gently. Not enough. With a thought, Yun Ting slashed gently with the immortal extermination sword on his back. Ching! Above the firmaments, the vast starry sky was sliced into 2 by the immortal extermination sword. Instantly, countless stars fell, and the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram was sliced apart by the immortal extermination sword. Star-plucking hand. With the help of the boundless star domain of the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram, Su Zimo released a supreme mystic power. Under the cover of the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram, the star-plucking hand gathered endless starlight, and its power increased exponentially. Too weak. Yun Ting shook his head once more, and the immortal extermination sword on his back moved, slicing the star-plucking hand into 2 instantly. Wherever the immortal extermination sword's sharpness passed, there was nothing it could not slice apart. Su Zimo, you can admit defeat now. With his hands behind his back, Yun Ting had an arrogant expression as the immortal extermination sword hovered in front of him, ready to slash down at any moment. Su Zimo raised his brows slightly and did not say anything. Yun Ting said, "I know that you may be unwilling or unconvinced. However, this is reality. It's not shameful to lose to the immortal extermination sword. Of course, I won't underestimate you even though I've won today. Among those of the same cultivation level, you're the only one that I, Yun Ting, value. It's because of you that I've become stronger. If you want to challenge me in the future, you're welcome to do so at any time. I hope that you won't be left too far behind after entering the true self stage." Relying on his bloodline phenomenon, the immortal extermination sword, Yun Ting stood on the gigantic stone battlefield and raised his head slightly, speaking confidently with the attitude of a victor. However, to the crowd of cultivators, those words sounded like a matter of course. It was not shameful to lose to Yun Ting. Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu both had smiles on their faces. Although Yun Ting and Su Zimo were not both injured, both of them had already released most of their trump cards. The end of this battle would be their chance. Suddenly, Su Zimo laughed and looked at Yun Ting, who was confident of victory. "Who gave you the confidence to think that you can suppress me with an incomplete bloodline phenomenon?" Chapter 2578. Humph. Yun Ting was displeased that Su Zimo refused to admit defeat. He had given Su Zimo a way out on account of his sister. To think that Su Zimo would not know what was good for him. Since that's the case, don't blame me for teaching you a lesson. With a thought, Yun Ting pointed in the direction of Su Zimo, and the immortal vanquishing sword behind him transformed into a streak of blood light that slashed forward. Su Zimo had a calm expression and did not dodge as his hands changed continuously. The impermanence of all actions is the dharma of life and death. The creation and death of thoughts are all impermanence. Su Zimo muttered a few obscure sutras and released an incomparably sacred dharmic seal that was filled with Buddhist light. It was one of the 3 secret techniques of the Forbidden Mystic Manual, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, the impermanence seal. Everything in the world was ever-changing. Everything was in a cycle of life, death, and destruction. Be it divine powers, mystic arts, or bloodline phenomenons that Yun Ting released, they were all part of the various actions. All actions were impermanent and ever-changing. The moment the impermanence seal collided with Yin Ting's bloodline phenomenon, the life and death of the immortal vanquishing sword was within his thoughts. The impermanence seal came from the True Forbidden Mystic Manual and was one of the 3 great Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries. The remaining 2 Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries were also recorded in the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. However, given Su Zimo's current cultivation realm and comprehension of Buddhism, he could not comprehend it even with the Bodhi seed. The remaining 2 Dharmic seals were of an even higher level, and he could not come into contact with them. Swoosh! The immortal vanquishing sword slashed down and collided with the impermanence seal. In front of countless gazes, the blood-colored sword dissipated instantly and vanished. The entire divine firmament hall was in an uproar. Yin Ting's bloodline phenomenon was so domineering earlier on, and easily destroyed 2 of Su Zimo's divine powers and mystic arts. To think that it would be resolved by a mysterious Dharmic seal. Yin Ju's expression changed in deep thought. She knew that Su Zimo had once obtained the hell-suppressing tripod and cultivated the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. He also knew that there were 3 Dharma seals in this taboo manual. It should be the seal of impermanence. As expected of a taboo manual, Yinju nodded. If Yin Ting's bloodline phenomenon could reach the level of a true supreme divine ability, it would be very difficult for the impermanence seal to nullify it. It was a pity that Yin Ting had never seen the heavenly kill and earthly kill, these 2 great sword techniques. That bloodline phenomenon was merely at the threshold of a supreme divine power, and had yet to reach the level of a supreme divine power. On the giant stone battlefield, Yin Ting frowned. Back then, during the Earthboard battle, he had seen Su Zimo release this Buddhist seal to neutralize Feng Yin's divine ability, but he did not take it to heart. To think that the Buddhist Dharmic seal would be able to dispel his bloodline phenomenon. Yin Ting was infuriated. He had just thought that victory was in his grasp, so he said a lot of words. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, the situation would change again, making him feel a burst of heat on his face. Well. Yin Ting harumphed coldly and grit his teeth. Since you refuse to admit defeat, I won't hold back any longer. I'll let you witness my true trump card. Buzz! Yin Ting's spirit consciousness moved, and a sword that shone with lightning suddenly appeared in his palm. Although the sword was surrounded by lightning, it could not conceal the sharpness of the sword. Yin Ting had already fused perfectly with the divine firmament sword. He was one with the sword. Even one's spirit consciousness could not detect Yin Ting's figure, let alone the naked eye. Yin Ting's sword Dao was indeed terrifying. If it was anyone else, they would not have been able to defend against that sword strike. However, Su Zimo reacted extremely quickly and blocked his 5 senses immediately. He retracted his spirit consciousness and relied on his spirit perception to sense the danger. Clang! Suddenly, a green beam of light flew out from Su Zimo's glabella. A jade scepter flew out. It did not take on the sharpness of the divine firmament sword head-on. Instead, it struck the spine of the divine firmament sword accurately with a crisp sound. The divine firmament sword shuddered. Normally speaking, the 3 treasures jade scepter could disperse the essence chi of Dharmic treasures and spirit consciousness. Any Dharmic treasure that collided with it would be struck down. However, Yin Ting was fused with the divine firmament sword and lightning coiled around it. The collision of the 3 treasures jade scepter did not strike the divine firmament sword down. Even so, the divine firmament sword paused in midair for a moment and revealed an opening. Chapter 2579. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly. Unknowingly, a horsetail whisk had appeared in his hands, and he flicked his wrist gently. With a swoosh, 3,000 strands of silver whisk tore through the air and surged towards the divine firmament sword and Yin Ting with a terrifying might. Yin Ting frowned slightly. Naturally, he could tell that Su Zimo's horsetail whisk was not easy to deal with. The 3,000 strands of silver were not much of a threat to him. However, if he were to fall into the silver river formed by the 3,000 strands of silver, he would definitely sink deeper and deeper. His movement technique would be restricted, and he would not be able to unleash the true might of his sword Dao. In melee combat, It was extremely important to seize the initiative. Yin-Ting did not want to be passive. At that thought, Yin-Ting swayed slightly and his entire body turned blurry. His figure faded, as though he had escaped into the unknown void, and was no longer in this world. The top movement secret skill of the upper world, sword traversing the great void. The reason why that movement technique was powerful was because sword traversing the great void had already touched upon the Tao and Dharma of space. One could traverse the great void to avoid danger and break free from predicaments. The silver river formed by the 3,000 strands of silver charged towards Yin-Ting. However, Yin-Ting and the divine firmament sword disappeared mysteriously. That was not teleportation. Instead, he vanished into thin air from the battlefield and escaped into the great void. That was an extremely shocking move. When the 3,000 strands of silver were exhausted and the silver river weakened, Yin-Ting would suddenly appear with the divine firmament sword and launch a counterattack against Su Zimo. Right then, a strange look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. A series of wondrous nimble chessboards appeared in his mind. Those chessboards flashed before his eyes one by one, and finally stopped at the 8th nimble chessboard. The key to breaking through the 8th nimble chessboard was the Tao of space. Earlier on, Su Zimo made use of the spirit potency art and the power of Wu Dao's true body to break through the 8th nimble chessboard. Although he could not control that power yet, the method to break through the game was already imprinted in his mind. Right in front of everyone, Yin-Ting had already escaped into the great void with the help of his sword Tao and disappeared. However, under Su Zimo's gaze, the gigantic stone battlefield that the two of them were on was a nimble chessboard. Yin-Ting's position could be seen clearly with nowhere to hide. Yin-Ting's figure entered the great void and was ready to counterattack. However, when he was in the great void, he suddenly realized that Su Zimo was staring at him intently. Those eyes of his could penetrate through the layers of the void. How is that possible? Yin-Ting's chessboard says, What's going on? S. He released his movement techniques consecutively and dove into the void one after another. However, Su Zimo's gaze followed him like a shadow the entire time, piercing his back like a dagger. For a moment, Yin-Ting felt as though he was a monkey that was being toyed with, jumping around. All of a sudden, a silver spear suddenly pierced through the void and appeared in front of him in an instant. It went straight for the back of his head. It was only at this moment that Yin-Ting was truly convinced that Su Zimo could see through his tracks. He slashed in reverse and collided with the incoming spear. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere as the sword and spear collided. This long spear was actually shaken by his sword and scattered into silvery white strands. The so-called spear was also formed from the Tai Horsetail Whisk's 3,000 threads. The Tai Horsetail Whisk's attack methods were unpredictable and could be tough or soft with a combination of yin and yang. When it was tough, the threads would form a spear that was indestructible. When it was soft, the threads would flow endlessly like water. Although he managed to disperse the incoming spear, Yin-Ting was also knocked out of the great void by the ferocious power of the spear and landed on the gigantic stone battlefield once more. The exchange between the two of them seemed like it took a long time. However, in front of the mini cultivators, it only took a couple of breaths. Suddenly Yin-Ting vanished. Thereafter, Su Zimo glared at the void of the gigantic stone battlefield for a moment. Suddenly, he swung his horsetail whisk and forced Yin-Ting out of an unknown void. Before Yin-Ting could stabilize himself, the Trigem Jade Rui descended from the skies. Yin-Ting raised his sword hurriedly to defend. Clang! The Trigem Jade Rui was sent flying, but Yin-Ting's body trembled slightly as well. Much of the power of thunder on the divine firmament sword was dissipated as well and condensed again before long. Swoosh! Immediately after, the 3,000 strands of dust transformed into a Milky Way that stirred up raging waves. It surged and surged, instantly drowning Yin-Ting. Break it! Yin-Ting's voice sounded in the silver river. Immediately after, an extremely sharp beam surged into the skies and split the silver river into two. Swash! Yin-Ting appeared once more and stepped on the silver river with a torrential aura. The Trigem Jade Rui smashed down once more. Clang! The moment the lightning and sharpness on the divine firmament sword rose, it was dissipated by the Trigem Jade Rui once more. Although Yin Ting had a supreme sword Dao, he could not release it. The moment he released his sword Dao, it was shattered by the combination of the Trigem Jade Rui and the primordial unity Horsetail Whisk. 3 heads 6 arms. Immediately after, Su Zimo released his supreme divine powers. Wielding the primordial unity Horsetail Whisk in one hand, the Trigem Jade Rui in the other, and the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan in the other, he charged in front of Yin Ting. Cling! Clang! Clang! Su Zimo's body spun continuously as the primordial unity Horsetail Whisk, Trigem Jade Rui and Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan attacked Yin Ting one after another. Not only that, Su Zimo even threw out 3 arms and punched Yin Ting with his fists, palms and fingers. Yin Ting's sword Dao was already in a mess against the primordial unity Horsetail Whisk and Trigem Jade Rui. Right now, he still had to face the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan and Su Zimo's 3 arms in melee combat. As the ancient saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Right now, Yin Ting was facing a total of 6 arms. His vision was filled with Su Zimo's fists and dermic treasures. He could not even catch his breath. 3 heads 6 arms was not a difficult divine power for Yin Ting to cultivate. However, he had never cultivated it before, and was disdainful of it. In his eyes, the sword in his hand was enough to deal with all strong enemies and kill all living beings. He had not expected to encounter such an unreasonable way of fighting from Su Zimo today. With the help of the primordial unity Horsetail Whisk and Trigem Jade Rui, Su Zimo did not use any intricate moves, and merely smashed Yin Ting's face repeatedly. Yin Ting was stunned from the beating. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of blows. Yin Ting was drenched in sweat and retreated in shock and anger. He was completely suppressed by Su Zimo, and did not even have the chance to curse out loud. The scene before him was equivalent to 3 Su Zimo attacking Yin Ting at the same time. No matter how strong Yin Ting's sword technique was, he could not withstand it. As for Su Zimo, he could not help but smirk when he saw that Yin Ting was still clenching his teeth and holding on. A sinister smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, a jade scroll flew out from his glabella. Immediately after, the jade scroll quickly transformed into a figure beside him. Jade Purity Jade Scroll, Primordial Beginning Body. F***CK. When Yin Ting saw that, his vision darkened and he almost fainted. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.